immortal words of Judy Brown. Happiness is a choice. We're happy you're spending some time with us. Chip and Zay, 2 to 4, right here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. If you're watching us on the YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. That's how we grow. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, please also give your attention and business to the logos you see around our faces: Audiovisual Consultation, Salt Traders, Coastal Cooking, Covered Bee Cave, Altstadt Brewery, Leaf Landscape Supply, Covered 3, OLIPOP, McCall Custom Homes, Woods Comfort Systems, 34 Wine and Spirits, Centex Tickets, and of course 7-Eleven, to name a few. Zay, how are you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. Can't complain. Happy hump day, everyone. Appreciate everybody rocking with us for our new time, 2 to 4. How you doing, my guy?
Well, I am doing just fine on this Wednesday. I'm doing a lot better than Texas basketball.
Yeah. I guess we got to get that out the way, right? At this point, Rodney Terry getting booed during the introduction part of the game or before the game started. That's never good. And yeah, losing 3 straight. I get it. Toughest conference in basketball, but this is Texas. There's a standard here, and they don't help their cases one bit when it comes to making the NCAA tournament. And Alabama came in and rolled tide their ass for a 23-point win, dropping a hundo chip. That's hard to do. Like dropping 100, that's tough. And they made it look easy. So, yeah, Texas basketball, rough times right now at the 40.
Well, it's I don't know. 6 games remaining. This game against Kentucky Saturday at home becomes a must win. I mean, their NCAA tournament chances are on life support. They almost have to win out, which is going to be a lot because they play Kentucky at home. Then they're at South Carolina. At South Carolina is not very good. They're 10-13. Then they're at Arkansas, a team they lost to here. Arkansas is fighting for its life too. Georgia at home, then at Mississippi State, which is ranked, and also fighting for its NCAA tournament life, and then home against OU. What are the chances that Texas can go 5-1, 4-2 against those teams?
I mean, there's a chance, but with the health of this team, that's the biggest problem at this point. I mean, let's get guys healthy. You know, Trayvon Mark, he missed the game on Saturday against Vanderbilt, and it looked like he was still hurt with the performance that he had last night. 2 for 12 from the field, only 6 points, 4 fouls. Like, he really struggled. Arthur Kaluma was awful for the first 13 minutes of the game, and then he goes out for the rest of the game. Then with a knee injury, Devon Pryor doesn't play because he's dealing with a calf injury. Kendall Weaver is still out. So they're just not healthy right now, and they look tired. Like I told you yesterday and Monday, for what we saw against Vanderbilt, this team is flat out exhausted due to the gauntlet that the SEC presents, and they just don't have the personnel, the size, the mass to keep up with teams like an Alabama or a Florida or an Auburn, all teams that they've lost to. You know, you definitely take the Missouri win. You take the A&M win, because both of those teams, it seems like they're guaranteed to be in the tournament, and both of those teams definitely can make noise once March comes around. But, man, losing these last 3, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and then getting blown out by Alabama. Like, if they would have lost by 5, maybe 7, then the committee could be like, okay, this Alabama team, they have everything it takes to win it all. Like Nate Oates' team, they got a squad. When you could start 3 6'10" guys and all those guys be super versatile and super skilled and just long and mess up what you're trying to do offensively, and then bring in, cats like Aiden Holloway, who had 18, cats like LeBaron Fallon that had about 15 points. Like, it's tough. They're a tough team to deal with, but you get blown out. You get drove on your home court. Like, what was the line? The line was 4 yesterday. You get blown out by 23. So that's not a good look. And now that guys are hurt, you're going to get that Florida State Jordan Travis syndrome, to where, why would we put a hurt team in the NCAA tournament over a team that's healthy and that's also on the bubble, just like Texas? So it seems like you're right, Chip. Like, winning out might be best for this squad. It's going to be very tough if they, next 5 games, I don't know, 5 or 6 games. I don't know how many they have. 6 games. If they go 3-3, then you're going to have to do some miraculous stuff in Nashville once the SEC tournament comes around, which it could happen. Like, you beat some high-profile teams like what Rick Barnes has, Chris Beard, Ole Miss. Like, you beat those teams in the SEC tournament, and that helps you out a little bit. But just what we saw last night on the court, other than Trey Johnson, nobody has confidence on this team. Like, I don't know, Jordan Pope, who got benched, like, he had a nice last 4 minutes, but it was too little too late at that point. Julian Larry, he just has his moments where, like, dude, you're a really, really good mid-major player playing in the best conference in the nation. You struggle. You struggle at times. He plays hard. His heart's in the right place. Like, I can't take that from Julian Larry, but the skill level and his size, he struggles at times. Jason Kent had his best game as a Longhorn last night, but that didn't account for nothing. And you know how Caden Shedrick is. Like, he's just, if he's your starting center, then you got a really tough front court situation. So as good as Trey Johnson is, he can't carry these guys. And it reminds me of a lot what we saw, don't like to make the Kevin Durant comparisons, but there are times where KD had to completely carry the squad in his lone freshman year. And, DJ was there and AJ Abrams was there, but you got to have more. You got to have more. And this team's just so fatigued right now. And they were completely outmatched last night against Nate Oates, who I think is a top 5 coach in the country.
Yeah. I mean, this team looks more lost than we've seen it. The injuries, obviously. I mean, Tremont Mark was what, over?
He went 2 for 12. So
2 for 12. 4 points. 6 points, sorry. 2 for 12, 6 points. Arthur Kaluma went over. He only played 11 minutes. And Eric Henry said that, in warm-ups, he was complaining about his knee. If Kaluma is limited, then this thing's probably not going to end well, because you and I've been saying he's got to be the guy. He's been one of the more consistent players on the team. Like last night, Texas gets 19 points from Jason Kent. He goes 6 of 9 shooting. Where's that been? Yeah. Like that was nice, and they needed it, but where's that been? And the only guy you can count on is Trey Johnson, and he scores 24 points on 9 of 17 shooting. And look, Alabama shot the lights out. They made 17 threes. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
So they just had a night. And when that happens, you're going down. Any team hits 17 threes, you're going down.
Yeah, but why are they getting so many open looks? That's my question. Because if you're RT and you're with your coaches, McClain, Frank Habe, Chappelle, and you're drawing up a game plan, and you've watched all the film that you could watch in the last 2.5 days on this Crimson Tide team, like I told you yesterday, they're number one in scoring. They play that Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni, fast break, 7 seconds or less type of ball. That's what Nate Oates likes, because he knows if we could use our speed and athleticism and we could get up high-quality shots before a team even gets set on defense, we're in the clear. We're good. And, yeah, to what James is saying, if you have 17 turnovers and you still win by 23, oh, my gosh. Like, that's scary. And, people always give love to different players and different teams, different players. You're basically a shooting god if you could shoot 50% from the field, 40% from three, 90% from the free throw line. Damn it, Chip. Alabama as a team shot 60 from the field, 58% from three, and 90% from the free throw line, and hit like 18 out of 20 free throws. Like, it was so easy for them. There was no one that they could really lock in on because everybody was eating. But also, you got to drive these guys off the three-point line. That's what you have to do. When you have transition defense, you got to find guys because you got to force them to do something they don't like to do. Nate Oates is a very analytic-driven coach, especially this era of basketball. Back in the 90s, shooting twos and getting pull-up jumpers, that was cool. Those were good shots. Now, when Steph Curry completely changed the way we look at the game, guys like James Harden, it's three-pointers and free throws. That's how Nate Oates coaches. You either get to the bucket, you get to the cup so you get a layup, and then if you miss it, we're going to use our athleticism to get rebounds, or we're going to shoot a lot of threes. We're going to mix both in there. So you got to force them to take tough twos. And Texas couldn't do that at all last night. Like, they just completely got exposed, man. And, again, you got to give your hats off to Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide. Like, they're really freaking good. Like, that game against Auburn, yeah, the Iron Bowl doesn't get more real than that. But, man, if you're RT, like, the game plan, it has to be better. I get it. They're number 2 in the nation. Coaches poll, they're number 1. It still has to be better. There's a standard here, and I'm not going to say Texas gave up. I still saw guys playing hard out there, but they were hanging their heads, man. They knew that they were completely outmatched, and if you take that energy into Kentucky and for the rest of the games this year, it's going to look bad. And there ain't no NIT, y'all. Like, CDC, they get to the NIT, CDC says, probably going to say, nah, we can't do this. We got to look for another coach. And definitely, if they did play in NIT, Trey Johnson ain't playing in that.
Oh,
His draft stock is rising. Playing in the NIT doesn't help your draft stock at all. He has to get ready for that. So it's tough times right now, man. It really is. I thought after the A&M and Missouri game, you would see the trajectory go up and guys would get even more confidence and guys would start playing even better basketball. That hasn't been the case, and it's pretty disappointing to see.
Yeah, and now with the whatever's going on with Arthur Kaluma, he only played 11 minutes last night. We got to get him going by Saturday.
Yeah, he hasn't been the same since Auburn when he dropped 34. Like, his rebounding's been good, but you could tell he hasn't been healthy. And, I mean, again, he's a small forward. He's 6'7". Nate Oates had a 6'10" guy playing small forward yesterday. Arthur Kaluma, being 6'7", has played power forward all year long. So that wear and tear, like, that's tough. That's tough to ask for him. And he's still giving you a lot, like to average, almost double-digit rebounds at 6'7". Like, he's definitely a warrior that way. But now when you're coming to the middle of February and March is just around the corner, guys get worn down. The lack of depth that they have is an issue now. And it goes back to what you and I were talking about early. Where the hell's Nick Cody? Where the hell's Jamie Vincent? You play those guys, in the meaningless games so they could be ready once conference play comes around. That's what you do because you might need them, i.e. now, damn it. Like, now you have no choice but to play those guys, and they're not ready. They're not. I'm not saying they would have still been ready if they would have played in those non-conference games, but they would have been a lot more ready to play in this situation than they are now. Jamie Vincent's still not really playing. He's 6'11". Just throw him out there and see what's up. It can't be worse than what at times Caden Shedrick and Zurich Oyema give you. So I just think the rotations have been a little questionable also. And again, they're suffering the consequences with how this coaching staff has gone about things with this lineup.
Yeah. And now what, Devon Pryor did not play.
They could have used him.
But you're right. I mean, you look at these you look at these young guys, Nick Cody's 6'8". He should be able to step in and give you something. Yeah, can Vic Schaefer coach both teams? And the difference, and Vic has a big, long track record. He's been to the Final Four. He's been to the national championship game twice as the head coach at Mississippi State. Rodney Terry's been to the Elite Eight. He had a 12-point lead or 13-point lead with 12 minutes left to go to the Final Four. And everything's a gamble. Teams are negative recruiting Texas, saying, why would you go there? Rodney Terry's not established. He got that job because he won with Beard's players. And look, they can get hot, but they're going to have to get guys healthy. And then, the foundation of what you're looking for is not there. It's where is Nick Cody? Where is Jamie Vincent? Because those guys are going to be back next year, or you hope they are. Trey Johnson's not going to be back. Some of these seniors are not going to be back. So you got to balance all that. You got to bring them along and maintain chemistry and culture and hope for health. And obviously they don't have health right now. Kendall Weaver, we still don't know when he's coming back with this hip flexor. He's one of the best defenders on the perimeter. Could have used him last night as they're making 3 after 3 after 3. And look, Alabama, no one expected Texas to beat Alabama. Would have been great. They had a night, 17-29 from 3. They were better from 3 for a large part of the game than they were from 2.
Yeah.
And so they get rolled. And then, you got this game against Kentucky, and then you almost have to win that game.
I think it's a must-win.
I just posted a story. I talked to Jerry Palm. And right now Texas is 7-10 against the top 3 quadrant teams. And no team has ever gotten in 3 games below 500 against the top 3 quadrant teams. Right now, Texas is 7-10. So Texas has to win at least 4 of their final 6. And even that's not a guarantee, because that still leaves you at 11 and that would leave you at 11 and 12 in quad 3 wins.
Yeah. And again, that 20th win means a lot. Like always has. When the committee looks at your record, getting 20 wins, they like to put those teams with 20 in, especially with this schedule. And the teams that you beat mean something. So if you could beat Kentucky, you're back in pretty decent shape, but they could go 0 for 6 easy. Like, don't sleep on South Carolina. People think that's a guaranteed win. They got a guy that's gonna be a first-round pick there. The homeboy with 3 names. I can't think of it right now, but that ain't gonna be no cakewalk. And you got to go to Columbia. So it's tough right now. It really is. And like you said, the negative recruiting, like, you're always going to be in the shadow of the football team, but also look what Florida's doing. They're top 5. Bama, who just beat you. Auburn, all these football schools. That don't mean nothing.
You're a basketball school if you hire a coach who wins.
Yeah.
Then you're a basketball school. Saying Texas is a football school, then hire a coach who wins.
Yeah.
Because Nate Oates has made Alabama a basketball school.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Beard made Texas Tech a basketball school. He wasn't here long enough to make Texas a basketball school.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good looking out.
Scott Drew has made Baylor a basketball school. Maybe not this year, but he won a national championship.
I won a national championship. That'd be nice.
Yeah, he won a national championship.
6 feet deep. I'd love to see that. Texas won a national championship in basketball. Freaking Baylor down in Waco. All the crap that goes on in that raggedy ass town. Kidding me?
Private school, man. Make all their records public, and you'll stop seeing the shadiness, like a basketball player getting murdered.
Oh, man.
Patrick Dennehy, R.I.P. Patrick Dennehy.
It's dark.
Good God.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a beatdown last night. And again, credit Alabama. They were smoking hot. They had 4 players with at least 3 threes. 4. How good is Alabama?
They're tough, man. Like, because even though they're going to force you to play their style, when it comes to defense, they could play any style when it comes to guarding other teams due to their versatility. Like, Nate Oates started 3 6'10" guys yesterday. He started old African brother who was clogging everything up. Omari, I don't know. He only had 10 points, but it seemed like Caden Shedrick and Zurich Oyema couldn't get anything off. Jared Stevenson, who dropped 22, 6'10", and Grit Nelson, who's dropped only 7, but he's our second leading scorer, who's also 6'10". But if that's not working, if you want to play a little bit faster than that, then bring in Phylon, bring in Holloway. One had 15, one had 18. Those guys could go and would start for a lot of teams around the nation. But since Nate Oates' squad's so stacked, they're not starting here. And then they might have the best point guard in the nation with Mark Sears. They're loaded, man. They're absolutely loaded. And on the other side, like Rick Barnes' Tennessee crew, starting to look that time for Rick Barnes, where his team starts to struggle and his team starts to feel the pressure of March, because they should beat Kentucky at least once. I know it's hard to play at Rupp, but Kentucky has all types of guys out, which could play into Texas's favor. Lamont Butler got hurt once again, re-aggravated that shoulder injury, so who knows what his availability will be come Saturday when they come down to the 40. But yeah, Rick Barnes' squad, they show those flashes of being really good, and then they get tight. They get tight offensively, and you're like, damn, Rick, every year, bruh. I would not be surprised if Tennessee didn't make it to the second weekend of the tournament at all, especially with Rick Barnes' track record. You knowing them personally. You know how Rick gets. Exactly, wearing them out. Like, what are we running lines for this time of the year? No one should be doing conditioning stuff. And I'm not saying Rick is. That's speculation. But I could see it. I could see Rick jumping his players and penalizing them by making them run horses and shit. Like, get on the line. Like, Rick, we don't need that. Guys should be in shape by now. We need guys getting cryotherapy and massages and stuff. No Justin Tucker. Like, we need guys right. We don't need to be pushing them, but guys get worn down for Rick Barnes. That's just how it goes. And I know he's feeling that pressure. I know he's feeling it because this team, you're not going to have many chances to be good and be that team that could get to a Final Four. I thought last year was it. Don't connect. Like, that was it. You got to get to the big dance with that team. Couldn't do it. So it's that time of the year, man. It really is. I love it. One of my favorite times in all of sports, like March Madness and just what that, brings out. Folks that don't even watch college basketball come out of the woodworks and are locked into their schools or just locked in general because they want to make a bracket. It couldn't be more fun and fascinating. But, yeah, you're starting to kind of see these teams that you're going to put in your bracket in the Final Four. And what we saw last night with Alabama, they're definitely one of them.
Yeah. Man, they look good.
Man, yeah.
That
dude Nate, when the job was open, should have threw that bag at Nate. Again, love RT, family, my dog, but now he's setting Tuscaloosa. Like, maybe you can make an offer he can't refuse, but he looks pretty set to me with that tacky ass jacket. That's the only thing Nate Oates does bad. That's a tacky jacket, boy. That jacket is ugly.
Remember Wimp Sanderson, a former Alabama coach? He always wore those red plaid blazers.
Yeah, but it was cool back then.
Yeah. maybe that's a tribute to
Wimp. Probably is. It probably is. But, yeah, I didn't hear it because I didn't see the, starting lineup introduction, but RT got booed last night by a good handful of folks.
Not a big, it was a vocal minority, but it's not a good look.
Not a good look. It's not a good look. Shout out to our man E. Henry, Horns 24/7. He asked RT how he felt about the boos. Here's what RT said.
RT, as a coach, I know your focus is squarely on, trying to find wins and working with your club, but you're a native Texan. You speak routinely about the pride you have in the burnt orange and representing this university. The boos when your name was announced, does that hurt you at all?
I don't know. I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. I didn't hear any boos. I don't know. Maybe it was boos. To me personally, I'm all about trying to get my team better. It's about focusing on those guys, focusing on what we have to do as a program to continue to stay the course and keep working. I don't get caught up in outside noise. If I'm worried about what people are saying or this or that, that's not my job. There's not anything anybody can say or do to me. Okay, I've got the number one protector in God, and I got strong faith. I'm a Christian guy, and nothing anybody can say can ever bring me down, So I don't get caught up in that. I didn't hear that if that was the case.
Hey.
Good answer.
Yeah. RT's, that's what you would expect him to say. He's gotta get these guys dialed in because you got Jim Schlossnagel. He's got the Texas baseball team working with a mental performance coach named Brian Kane, and Schloss swears by the guy. He's been using them since 2006 because you're trying to get guys to play free, play with their mind free, especially in baseball, where what Augie Garrido say? Empty head, full bat. Full head, empty bat. And now RT's got to block out all the noise. I just put out a story. Jerry Palm says Texas has to win at least 4 of its last 6. And that doesn't include, the conference tournament. But 4 of 6. Like,
Yeah.
Answer. It's answer time.
Yeah, which the conference tournament, who you probably going to get? Arkansas, OU for the third time? Don't like that. Don't like that at all. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of love that. I kind of love that Schloss, brings in a mental performance coach, because I think, man, everybody's all about muscles and speed and conditioning. You need mental conditioning too. And if you got a guy or a gal you think can help your athletes deliver the highest level, heck yeah. Bring it on. Maybe it's probably too late for RT to give old Brian Kane a call, but because I know a bunch of the coaches at Texas use different kinds of performance coaches. They used to call them sports psychologists. Now they call them mental performance coaches. But whatever it takes. I mean,
Jordan Pope could use that.
Who?
Jordan Pope. He needs help. I don't know what's going on with him. Like, talk about a struggle. That guy, because now he's benched. So now it really gets in your psyche on how bad you've been and what you're not bringing to the table. And Jordan Pope, this guy, back-to-back years playing for the Beavers, Oregon State, 17 points a game. Like, that's solid. It wasn't like the Pac-12 was just sorry, even though there's no more Pac-12. Like, those are solid stats. Now, they didn't mean nothing because Oregon State was trash, but you thought it would be an easier transition from him coming over from the Pac-12 to the SEC. And he's really struggled. Like, Arthur Kaluma's been the best transfer. Trayvon Mark, I don't know if it's injury problems, but he's just so inconsistent also. Like, he just doesn't look comfortable out there. The shots that he took last night, they were all rushed. It's just, I don't know. I don't think there's really an answer for it besides the talent level, the lack of size. They just can't compete in this conference night to night. And that's what we saw last night for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be it's going to be a tightrope walk. Tightrope walk for the Longhorns from here on out. And it's going to be that Vanderbilt game, Zay, I'm telling you, that one was a killer.
Killer.
You're up 10, and then you get beat, and you get more credit for winning on the road, in the committee's eyes than last year. Remember, Texas was better on the road than they were at home. It was really weird.
Yeah.
And those road wins kind of saved their bacon. And I was talking to Jerry Palm. I said, you've got him as a play-in 11 seed playing in the first 4 play-in game. I said, is that going to change? He's like, probably so. My next update comes out tomorrow. So, Texas is absolutely on that bubble. And it's not going to be losing by 23 to Alabama, although that's a huge wake-up call. It's losing those games like Vanderbilt. And just imagine if they didn't come back from 22 down to beat A&M. And if Arthur Kaluma hits a free throw, maybe they beat Ole Miss with 49 seconds left. All that stuff adds up, man. And you start looking at it and you're like, oh boy, the ones that got away. And you didn't play anybody in the non-conference. In the ones you did play, you didn't win. So, I mean, if we're looking at the schedule, you know, you played Ohio State in Vegas, you lost. Ohio State's not even that good. Right?
No, they're not.
Let me look at the Big Ten here real quick, because you got they may be great in football, but Ohio State is 14-10, 6-7 in the Big Ten. Middle of the pack, below middle of the pack. So you lose that one, and then you don't play anybody. Houston Christian, Chicago State, Syracuse, you beat. What's Syracuse? Huh?
Sorry. Syracuse, sorry too. I saw them get rolled by Duke by like 30 at home. They're sorry too.
Yeah, Syracuse is 11-14.
Sorry.
You know, NC State is 9-14.
Horrible.
And then you played UConn, you lost. No shame in that, but UConn's not even as good as we thought.
No.
And your one win over a ranked team at the time was Missouri. I don't think they're ranked anymore. And then you beat A&M when they were ranked, and you almost beat Ole Miss when they were ranked. So now you got to, as Jerry Palm said, you got to win 4 of your last 6. Minimum, he said. Minimum.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And I don't know, like what CB asked me, who are candidates for the job if RT is let go. I really don't know where you go at this point.
You don't like TJ Otzelberger?
I love TJ Otzelberger, but he gives me that Matt Campbell feel where he's really settled in and coaching his guys. Like, I'd go after him hard. That'd be the first person I'd go after, because, again, Texas not being in the Big 12 anymore, so you're not going to see Iowa State. Like, I'd go after him for sure. Like, I know some people say Rick Pitino, which is nuts. Rick Pitino. As good as St. John's is this year, Rick Pitino ain't it. Like, that's definitely not it. Randy Bennett at St. Mary's is a dark horse for me. He's old. Like, I think he's 60-ish. But, man, he gets those white boys to hoop. That's all St. Mary's gets. They get those Matthew Dellavedovas, and the blackest dude they had was Australian Patty Mills. I mean, the blackest dude he's ever had. But he be coaching them, and they run some great stuff. And they're always that team once March comes around that always surprises you. You know, it's just, is his age going to be an issue? Like, how many years does he have left? And is he comfortable being in California, family and stuff? Sure, he got grandkids. He's not related to Tony Bennett. But, yeah, I take a look at that. The Nate Oates thing, that ain't happening. I wish, but that dude, like, he's looking for a new arena there. I know he was taking pictures during the game of the Moody Center, but that's because he's trying to compare notes to if Alabama gets a new arena, where the motivation's going to come from. But, you know, Kelvin Sampson's comfortable. Scott Drew ain't going nowhere. Another guy to maybe look at where it's getting a little stale at where he is, but he's had extreme success, Mark Few. But he's old as hell too. Like, Mark Few's in his 60s. So what is that? How many years does he have left? You know,
that's old as hell.
I mean, you just never know. You want guys here 10 plus years. Like, that's what you're looking for. Like, that's why Chris Beard was so ideal, because he's still a young whippersnapper in the business. And plus, Mark Few, he be drinking. He got hit with that DWI. So, people make mistakes. But still, like, I give Mark Few a call. Be like, yo, it's getting stale down there at Gonzaga, bro. Like, I get it. You have a great program running for a long time. Guys like Jalen Suggs and Drew Timme and Dan Dickow going way back. Like, Mark Few's had some dudes, but I don't think they're going to be that good this year when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Maybe he might want something different. Maybe he might want a place where the resources are a little better. That NIL is a little better. And even though Gonzaga has no football team and basketball reigns supreme up there at Pacific Northwest, Jesse, you're wilding.
Jesse says, Tom Penders. Just kidding.
Hey, you know me, Royal Ivy, too. Royal, no experience. I always hear that, but he had my African South Sudan brothers hooping in the Olympics. They were one shot away from beating Bron, Steph, KD in that Olympic game, the exhibition game. Yeah, I can't see it. I can't see, like, Houston, they let him do whatever he wants in Houston. They got a brand new arena there. Like, he's getting big time 5 stars at now. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I just can't see him. Like, he's planted his flag there in H-Town.
Kelvin Sampson is the name on the screen, Jesse. And I like that. He's 69.
Oh, man.
But that dude can coach. But TJ Otzelberger, 47 years old. Sean Miller is a guy who had Xavier going. And now Xavier's fallen off a little bit.
Yeah.
Sean Miller. I know he and Del Conte have crossed paths when they were in the pack together. But
yeah, like what about was it Dutcher, San Diego State? He's 65. He up there.
Right. Right. I don't think he's a fit, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Sampson, yeah, he's 65, Brian Dutcher. If you're going to go Brian Dutcher, you might as well go for Kelvin Sampson.
Oh, for sure.
Sampson, he's won everywhere. He got in trouble at Indiana for texting kids when he wasn't supposed to be.
That's
no one
a
cares.
good guy. Nobody cares about that. Check up on him, Kelvin. Like, text him. Ain't no wrong with that.
Text him. He's checking in on him.
Now you could do that type of thing. Sometimes, yeah. So I'm saying, Royale, I'm telling you.
Okay.
Royal Ivy's going to get KD to put money in. Because KD, I don't know what his NIL situation is. I see James Harden, Arizona State, he's throwing them money like it ain't nothing. I've heard James Harden spent millions NIL for Arizona State. I don't know what KD's doing, but if you got Royal Ivy, him and Kevin Durant being so close, that could be a terrific booster, especially when you could put everything when it comes to KD's logo on everything. Like, you already got it on the fleeces and the pullovers, which are fly, but we need it on the jersey too. Like the KD logo and stuff. Like, that'd be dope. You're already with Nike. It's a perfect match. Hell, KD's on his 18th shoe with Nike.
You like Grant McCasland at Tech?
Yeah.
What you mean?
He's all right. A person that would have been good a year ago, but RT needed more time. Dusty May, Michigan. Came from FAU. Michigan, sleeper, all y'all hoop heads that are going to be filling out the tournament. Watch the Wolverines. They beat Purdue yesterday. They got 2-footers, 2 7-foot guys in their starting lineup. One of them is going to be a first-round pick. Dude's crazy skilled. Like, he's got them rolling over there. So somebody said KD wants a WNBA team in Austin. That'd be cool. WNBA's popping right now. But
yeah.
Speaking of KD, shout out to KD going over 30,000 points. That's a big deal. That's a real big deal. Like, that's a lot of freaking buckets. If you go over 30,000, you're an elite scorer. Like, you can't be stopped anytime. And he's the 8th player in NBA history to go over 30K. Bron leading the top, Kareem, Karl Malone, Kobe, MJ, Dirk, and Wilt. Now Kevin Durant. So, bravo, KD. Hell of a career, man. And he missed games. He missed seasons. Like, who knows where KD would be if he played those years, tore his Achilles and stuff like that, and missed a whole year. Like, if KD had them years back, he might be at 35, 36K by now. And I might be biased just because I was born in this era, but I'll take KD over Wilt, Dirk, Carl. That's about it. I can't take him over Kobe. I can't take him over MJ. Can't take him over Kareem. Can't take him over Bron, but yeah, man. Kevin Durant putting on.
I mean, KD, just yesterday, my man was rolling up to Texas, and I remember talking to his mom and his dad, and KD coming in, and I'll never forget sitting there courtside for shoot around the NCAA tournament. They beat New Mexico State and then they lost to USC. And Rick, I'm sitting there talking to Rick, and he goes, "Watch this." He's like, "KD, shoot that 3 with your left hand." And he was making them. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't show that, but he's got it. And that kid was an absolute. I mean, they had to give him a key.
Yeah.
To the gym because he liked to, if he couldn't sleep, he'd go practice. He'd go shoot at 11, 12 at night.
Oh, he would go to pickup games around the city. I remember seeing him at Northwest Rec Center right off Mopac. They used to hoop there Saturday mornings, and it used to be a packed house. If you lost the game, you might as well go home because you're not going to get back on the court for another 2 hours or so. And he would come in with a couple of other guys on the team and just dominate just because he loves ball that much. Like, clearly he was a step above everyone in that gym, but he just loved to hoop. And it didn't matter where it was, as long as there was a gym and a goal in that gym and he had a basketball, it's going down. And that is just, you don't see that very often. You know, like, everybody always talks about Kobe's mindset and MJ's mindset, but KD's not far from that at all with his love of the game and his passion for it. Like, yes, he's petty as hell. Big reason why he's my dog. Extremely petty, the burner accounts. He'll go back at random fans and random trolls on X/Twitter anytime they say something crazy that deserves attention from him. Like, he loves talking crap about old heads that disrespect the culture. I want to say a couple of weeks ago, Chip, when the Warriors were playing the Suns, Gary Payton II plays for the Warriors, and Gary Payton Sr., the glove, was in the stands. And him and KD were chirping back and forth, talking mess. Gary Payton, one of the best trash talkers of all time. And KD was giving it to him. KD was like, bruh, you were like the ninth man coming off the bench when you were my age. I'm out here still putting up numbers. We're not in the same category. You're in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame too, but we're not the same. And your son knows that too. And it's just like, man, this dude KD different. He's different. And I get it. Certain people call him soft for losing in the conference finals as an OKC Thunder player and then going to the team that beat you, the Golden State Warriors. It's not my favorite move in NBA history, but hey, he wanted to play high-quality basketball, always wanted to play with Steph, played with greats like Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, got himself 2 rings that he earned. You still got to win them. You can't. We've seen a lot of super teams that didn't get to the mountaintop. They did twice. Would have done it the third time if he didn't tear his Achilles against Toronto. Like, he deserves all the respect. And that's why you come to Chip and Zay to hear that respect, because we're going to give it out to him. He's one of the greats, 30,000 points, 8th person in NBA history to do that. Deserves all the flowers, man.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And, you know, KD's been good for Texas. He's been good for Texas. Every contract that he's signed with Nike, he's tried to incorporate some connection to Texas. The KD brand, the KD practice facility, it's been good for Texas. Yeah. So, I mean, KD's, for a guy who spent 8 months here, talk about return on investment. I mean, the guy rolled in for 8 months, won the Player of the Year, and became one of the best. I'll never forget Colin Cowherd saying, "What am I going to do with Kevin Durant? The guy doesn't look like he can bench 100 pounds." And
his worst take of all time.
I wanted to text Cowherd because I was driving when I heard him say that and say, "Get off that stance fast."
Yeah.
Get off that stance. Because Texas hadn't really been putting a bunch of, I mean, TJ set the bar, and then you had, you know, a good, I mean, KD then set the bar. And then you had DJ Augustine and Tristan Thompson and Corey Joseph and those guys. But Texas hadn't been putting a lot of guys in the league until TJ and then KD. And then Texas was putting them in left and right.
Yeah.
At one point, Texas had more players in the NBA than Duke.
I don't know about that.
I think for like 1 year.
Okay. That definitely didn't last, because every year Duke's got someone. But I'm with you. Like, I don't understand what Portland's thought process was. It was still, I guess, the time and day where you needed a big-time center, and everybody thought Greg Oden was that guy. But it's like, are you not watching what we're seeing here in college basketball, what Kevin Durant's doing, 25 and 11 as a freshman, playing center for his team a lot of the time? Like, he was the center for a lot that season. People forget he was definitely the power forward for the whole time, but at that size that he had, and I get it, he was way more of a Slim Jim back then than he is now, but nah, that skill, it was clear.
And he was a 40% shooter from 3.
It was clear as day. Like, I just, that's why Portland hasn't won since Bill Walton. Like, it was clear as day who that number one pick should have been. And again, Greg Oden was good, but Greg Oden didn't have that bag. Like, Greg Oden needed somebody.
You know what it was?
Sidekick.
I think Ohio State didn't they go to the Final Four that year?
Yeah, they went to the championship. They lost to Florida, Billy Donovan and them.
Okay, that was it. I guarantee you.
Yeah, for sure.
Recency bias. He helped a team go to the championship game, and that's our guy. They didn't do their homework. They didn't dig in. They didn't realize that Kevin Durant, when he was 15, was like 6'3".
Yeah.
And he shot up and had the handle of, he was a guard. He was a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't look into the fact that he was trained by Taurus Brown at the Seat Pleasant Rec Center in DC, a guy who wouldn't let Kevin Durant play pickup games. And if he caught him playing in a pickup game, he made him do bear crawls for like 20 bear crawls back and forth the full length of the basketball court, and said, you're not going to develop bad habits. You're going to be great. And same guy who trained Michael Beasley. And it was one of the coolest, talking to, his nickname was Stink, Taurus Brown. They called him Stink. Talking to him for that Kevin Durant story, he cared about Kevin Durant. Like, he knew that Kevin Durant wanted to be great. His mom, Wanda's working at the post office. She's working crazy hours. So Kevin would go to school and he'd go right to the Seat Pleasant Rec Center. He'd do his homework, and then he got to get on the basketball court. Sometimes Wanda wouldn't pick him up till 7 at night because of her work schedule. She got remarried, but she was a single mom for a good part of Kevin's upbringing. And she made him run. There was a hill outside the rec center, and if Kevin did something like playing a pickup game or something, Wanda would make him run up this hill 50 times. Kevin said one time it was like dark and in the rain, and I'm going up and down this hill for playing in a pickup game. But he said that's how much they cared about my fundamentals, and it got me to buy in. So he would drill and drill and drill and drill. And he wouldn't play unless he was in a coached game. And kudos to Russell. The assistant coach. Oh man.
Yeah, I just called him Russell. I know exactly what
Russ.
I'm talking about. Yeah.
But he saw him when he was in 8th grade and was like, oh my God, who is this guy? And he started recruiting him, and that being first in, building that connection from the very beginning, that mattered to Kevin Durant. And he wanted to go somewhere where he could blaze his own trail and not go to Connecticut and North Carolina, who were the schools everyone thought he was going to go to. And yeah, Katie was that dude was a breath of air, and you knew he was going to be great. Like, Katie got so mad at me because Kobe was kind of like everyone wanted Durant, Adidas, everybody. And Kobe was kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudging Durant to Nike. And I wrote that. And Durant's like, hey, lay off that, man. I'm gonna do what I want to do. Plus, it would have been like, taboo for Kobe. Kobe didn't care, but it was now they do that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
They're like, you got other coaches talking about players. Remember when Doc got in trouble for saying how great a player was? Fined. a player on another team. But yeah, Durant was so special. And he didn't get his driver's license while he was in Texas. He left here with still didn't know how to drive because he was so busy playing basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll just never forget, like he and Beasley crossed paths. Beasley was at K-State. Durant was at Texas. And Beasley had been to like 5 different high schools. Dude could play.
He was good.
But I remember Taurus Brown telling me Michael Beasley was always getting into pickup games. Like he didn't listen to me like Kevin did, And he said Michael thought Michael knew best. And he had a good career.
It was all right.
But it wasn't what everyone thought.
It's not what it should have been at all. No.
He was with the Heat.
Yeah.
Right?
Michael Beasley, let's just keep it real, straight up ignorant. Like him not listening. Yeah, that checks out for sure. And he was a terrific talent. A lot of people swear that he's one of the best players that they've ever saw in the high school level. And that one year at Kansas State, he was the man because he came after KD. But I remember he had KD by one more point in the average. So I think he averaged like 26 and one more rebound. So I think it was like 26 and 12. And, he was a southpaw, so he was tough to guard that way. But, yeah, I don't know if he ran with the right crowd. He was just one of those guys where didn't meet the potential that he could have been. And that's unfortunate. But, going back to Greg Oden a little bit, if I'm scouting that Ohio State team that went to the Final Four, lost in the national championship against Joakim Noah, Al Horford, Corey Brewer, that back-to-back Florida team that was definitely special. I don't think people realized how freaking good Mike Conley was. That's what I remember as a 15-year-old. I remember him and thinking, this guy's different. Because he, also a southpaw, he would throw up that right-handed floater as a freshman. Guys weren't doing that. Guys still aren't doing that. That's why he's 15 years deep in the league still. I thought he made that whole team go. And Greg Oden was a good player.
Mike Conley got Greg Oden drafted.
Big part. Like he had 7 foot, like 7'8" wingspan, whatever the hell Greg Oden had. Like you can't teach that. But also what Mike Conley was doing that whole year, it was different, boy. And that's what I remember. Like, man, this guy Conley as a point guard is everything you want in a PG. And he's going to have a terrific NBA career. And that's why he's still playing to this day. So if I'm Portland, I would have looked at that a little bit like, man, as good as DJ Augustine is, Kevin Durant's getting a lot of these buckets on his own. Like,
right.
Mike Conley's creating everything for Greg Oden. Lobs, dimes. So
yeah, Beasley did come the year after KD. My bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, and CB was the one who sent me the Colin Cowherd audio on the text line back when he was talking about Durant coming out. That's how long CB and I go back to 07. What, 18 years?
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, it's, you got to do your homework. You got to do the evaluation. I mean, and the fact that Durant was playing for a defensive-minded head coach like Barnes, I mean, there were games that Kevin could have and should have taken over. I remember he was being single-guarded against Baylor, and his teammates weren't looking for him. And after the game, I said to Rick Barnes, I'm like, they were playing Durant one-on-one. Like, why weren't guys getting the ball? And Barnes was like, well, Kevin needs to demand the ball. And I was like,
All right.
I had Damian James firing up shots.
Yeah.
But Durant, he didn't become, real demonstrative until, I mean, he was in and out of being demonstrative, but they played Baylor again in the Big 12 tournament, and Texas was down by 20. And Durant couldn't hit. And then he hit a 3 at the beginning of the second half. That was it.
That was it.
He couldn't miss. Texas came back, won, and then played Sharon Collins and Mario Chalmers in an epic Big 12 tournament final that Kansas won. But that was such a fun year to cover Durant because he had that showdown with AC Law. He had the showdown with Oklahoma State where it went to triple overtime. Trying to remember Mario Biggins or something, whoever the stud was for Oklahoma State. And then Kansas. Durant goes to Kansas and scores 24 in the first half. Fog Allen Fieldhouse was a library. You could hear Rick Barnes yelling out calls. That's how quiet Fog Allen Fieldhouse was. Like, Kansas fans still say they've never heard it so quiet when Durant went off. And then he rolled his ankle and he missed like 7 minutes of the game. Kansas comes all the way back with Julian Wright, and Kansas ends up winning the game. But Bill Self was like, wow.
Yeah.
That was, they still talk about it.
Julian Wright should have been so much better. I thought he was going to be a star. He had us all bamboozled. That guy, he was long. He was skilled. He'd dunk your ass if he caught you slipping under the rim. I thought he'd have a way better NBA career. I don't even remember who drafted him or what happened. And who knows? He could have had a career-ending injury, but
Didn't he go to like the Hornets? He went to one of those never to be heard from again NBA teams.
okay, yeah, that's never good. That's never good. But yeah, I remember when he just said, you know what, KD, screw everybody. I'm one of the best players in the world. I'm about to be for the next 10 to 15 years in the league. When he was on that USA FIBA team 2 years before the 2012 Olympics, 2010, it had Derrick Rose and Steph was on that team, and he was easily the best player. And they played Turkey, who had Hedo Turkoglu on it, and he just dominated the whole FIBA Americans and took his game to another notch. And I was like, oh, man, this guy, NBA better look out. And that's exactly what happened. Like, that OKC team, they should have got at least one ring. It's sad that they didn't, but that him and
Who do you
Westbrook
blame?
figured it out. Sam Presti, GM. Sam Presti, as good as of a job that he's done over his tenure, his worst decision, which is why I don't have a ring, was saying yes to Serge Ibaka and no to James Harden.
Yeah.
That wasn't the move.
They didn't think they could afford Harden. They should have kept him and played through his contract. They wanted to get something in return. They didn't think they could sign him, but you're right. I mean,
yeah. But that's what they
you had all those young guys. You had Durant, Westbrook, and Harden all on, young contracts.
Yeah. And they valued Ibaka more than Harden. And then after they went to the finals, they said, he's not going to sign with us. We got to get something for him. Let's send him to Houston. And then James Harden became James Harden, and Sam Presti was like, crap. Like, you could find a random big that could block shots like Serge Ibaka. Maybe not as good as Serge Ibaka, but pretty close. Like Serge Ibaka, he didn't wow anybody for the rest of his career. He got his
All right, let me
ring in
ask you this.
Toronto, but
Let's say it's Mike Conley instead of Russell Westbrook in OKC. Do they get it done?
And you keep James Harden?
No. Go back to that finals that they made and they lost.
No.
Right. Westbrook was that just riddle of a player. So talented, so good, such a good defender, scorer, can get his own shot, but didn't have great feel for when to distribute. And it was almost like he was in competition with KD, right?
At times, yeah. And then when he finally figured it out, when he started becoming triple-double Russ, KD's already in Golden State. I'm sure KD was probably like, bro, where was this? Why weren't you going after triple-doubles and becoming this all-world passer when I was there? Like, what happened? Like, what made you flip the switch? And there's that saying, you never know what you've lost until it's gone. That was that moment for both of those guys. Because Russell's game changed and KD clearly going to Golden State, moved on and got himself 2 rings, but it was just too late. Like KD be wide open, and then Russell take the last shot. He'd be like, dude, you're really freaking good. But that guy over there, he's going to be a 30,000-point scorer one day. Like, he always should get first say in taking the last shot. And Russell's pride, man, it was when he was young, his pride got in the way of those OKC teams. And
obviously going down memory lane with Kevin Durant going over 30,000 points, only the 8th player to do it. All the names ahead of him are Hall of Fame legends.
Legends, man.
Legends.
Yeah.
But
Wilt was playing against plumbers, dog. Let's keep it a buck. Wilt Chamberlain, 30,000. I don't mean nothing to me. Come on. I was guarding guys like me were guarding guys like Wilt Chamberlain back then. That ain't nothing.
He said he had 20,000 women. He would have had to have like 2 and 3 women a day for like 16 years.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah, he was a horny guy.
Like, how do you, unless you're doing them 3 at a time,
right? Yeah, he could have been those menage a trois.
Maybe he had the harem going in the 70s.
Right. Yeah, it's the 70s,
60s.
baby. Wilt did his thing.
Free love.
Yeah. Then he passed the baton to Magic. He was in LA, passed the baton to Magic. Magic rolled with it. Difference was, I think Wilt had the Jimmy hats on him. Magic was just Magic left them Jimmy hats in the car. Something.
Man.
Shout out to Cookie Johnson, man. Ride or die. You know me, love me a good ride or die. Brittany Matthews, Taylor Swift, Cookie Johnson. Ride or die.
Let's hold off on the Taylor Swift for the moment.
What you
mean?
What you mean?
They've been out for like a blip compared to Cookie and Magic.
Nah, true.
Like, aren't they still together?
Cookie and Magic? Yes. Yeah. It's wild
That
stuff.
was 92, Zay.
That's wild stuff. I'm gone. I'm sorry.
I will never forget that day. I thought Magic was dead.
Yeah. That's dark, but
no, but right. I mean, he's like, I have the HIV virus that I've attained. And at that time you were like, oh my God, he's going to die. And give it to Magic, man. He traveled the world to get the right cocktail of medication to keep that thing dormant and never developed into full-blown AIDS.
Yeah.
So
CB, this is just a myth. I'm not riding with it. You know how I feel about Jeannie Buss, man. That is a myth.
Where did that come from? Is that in one of these Lakers specials that I got to watch?
No, it's just, Jeannie, she's fine as hell. So everybody's assuming.
How old was she in 92?
She was still pretty young. She was like 30s, early
Let's
30s,
see.
maybe late 20s.
This Jeannie Buss.
Yeah. But she was a part of the process, though, of drafting Magic. Like, she was in those meetings and stuff, and they were around the same age when he got drafted.
Magic is 65 and she's 63.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're close. They're really close, because when Jerry Buss was doing his thing, Jeannie and Magic was relatable, and she knew how Magic got down. And it was like, okay, we got to keep this guy happy. I get him. We see eye to eye. I'm living this fast LA lifestyle. Hell yeah, check it out, CB. Everybody, check out Jeannie Buss, Playboy. That was around the same time, 92. 90s, where she's at the Forum, butt naked, at the famous Inglewood Forum, where the Lakers used to play. And that was when they owned the hockey team too. So she was wearing hockey gear. She got 2 basketballs covering the melons, and she got pictures of her just holding basketballs with her birthday suit on. Oh yeah.
Did she marry Jay Moore?
I don't know. All I know is her relationship with Phil Jackson. I don't know anything else besides that, which Phil fumbled that bag, but we've talked about that before. That was a huge fumble, Phil. Big time fumble. That's
see.
way worse.
They got
way worse than losing the Pistons in 04.
Let's see. I think she did marry. Okay. They began dating in 2017. They announced their engagement they got married in 2023. The couple live apart. Buss lives on the 3rd level of their apartment building, while Moore lives on the 1st level.
What?
According to her Wikipedia page, after they got married in September of 2023. That's weird.
That is weird.
That's weird. Jay Moore. I got a Jay Moore story.
Yeah, I gotta hear this. I've never heard this one.
This goes back to that. The CB will jump in on this one. The Friday the 13th, when Mac, everyone thought, Friday the 13th, 2013, in December 13th, 2013, I had reported earlier in the week that Mac Brown would be stepping down by the end of the week. And Mac was he had his own ideas. This is when he convinced Steve Patterson to keep him. And so the football banquet comes and goes, and Mac still hasn't been let go or stepped down. And Jay Moore, who had 330,000 followers on Twitter, direct messaged, he tweeted at me and said, "Well, Chip, we're waiting." And 330,000 of his followers came pouring in, "Well, Chip, we're waiting."
Okay, I remember this story now.
And I was getting death threats, all this stuff. And Jay Moore saw it. And of course, Mac stepped down by the end of the week, just like I said. Wasn't pretty, but Jay Moore called me and it was like, "Hey, I want to have you on my show." Because at the time he had a sports talk show. And And so I went on his show, and he's like, "Hey, man, I apologize. I didn't realize all the grief, you were getting." And yeah, that was nice of him. It was nice of him.
Yeah, sweet guy.
That was crazy.
Now he's knocking down Jeannie Buss and then going downstairs and sleeping. Legend. I
mean,
Salute.
are they in LA?
Yeah, they got to be in LA.
Yeah, but she lives on the 3rd floor. He lives on the 1st floor. Like,
Hey, he needs
That
his
sounds like-
space. He needs his space. Maybe, maybe she'd be a tough sleeper. Maybe she twirling and kicking and stuff. And he's gotten
That's
kicked way
right.
too many times to say, I can't deal with this.
Jay Moore used to be married to Nikki Cox. Look her up, Zay. Nikki
Oh, man, that got
Cox.
cleaned up. I mean, he's a funny guy. I get it. I see it. I see it. Yeah, the guy's done well throughout his career. But
What show was she in? Unhappily Ever After. That show was somewhat amusing.
she was in Baywatch. She was one of the girls. Slow motion run.
Slow motion run.
Yeah. You Baywatch.
Yeah, Jay Moore
girl.
doesn't look so good right now.
What? What does that mean?
I mean, he looks like he's not staying in shape for movies. Maybe that's why she's on the 3rd floor and he's on the 1st floor.
Oh,
Let me see if I can pull up a bootleg. What? You're petty. I'm jumping right.
I'm not talking about the dude's looks. I ain't being that petty. Good grief.
Oh, don't good grief me. What you mean? You're always into that stuff.
Jay
me
looks
see.
fine. He's aging a little bit. He looks fine.
Oh my God. You are out of control.
Look. Picture of him and Jeannie right there.
I was looking at this one down below.
Which one down below?
The one right below the one you're showing.
Oh, yeah, that's not the best picture.
That's the one I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. I was like, ooh. But
Everybody ages. Father time always wins.
no, listen, he looks better than I do, so I can't say anything. But yeah, I know you're all hung up on Jeannie Buss. Like you got that's your Mrs. Robinson crush. That's your
I love that woman. I do. I love that woman. And she knows hoops too. Come on.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He's too fat to walk up 3 flights.
Roy says Jay Moore's too fat to walk up 3 flights.
Y'all wrong.
What you would say.
Y'all cold. Y'all cold, man.
I really like Jay Moore too. I mean, I liked him before he got into sports talk radio. I always thought he was funny. And that was cool what he did because, oh my God.
Yeah, they were lighting your ass up, huh?
Oh, that was something else. That was one for the ages. But hey, we should probably get a couple mentions in here. We've been having such a nice conversation about KD, Jeannie Buss, Zay's crush on Jeannie Buss.
Oh, yeah. Love you, Jeannie. Go Lakers.
Actually, before we get to the mentions, let's get, now that you've seen Luka in a Lakers jersey, what's your take? Do you think he's still in shock?
A little bit, but they did a good job. They put all of his jersey shirts in the seats, so everybody got one. And you hear LeBron's pregame speech about Luka. We play don't try to fit in. We fit for you type of situation. I don't know how he said it, but basically he was telling Luka to play his game and everybody else will find their role playing off Luka. Only had 14 points the other night against Utah Jazz, who aren't anything to write home about. They're one of the worst teams in the league. But for the first game, you saw the flashes. His passing ability, his ability to score anytime he wants to. He's going to get a lot of people, a lot of open looks. And, one of the biggest things with this Lakers team is he's going to help Bron not be on the ball so much. Like Bron playing off the ball, he could do that. Bron gets a little fatigued. He's a 40. As in shape as he is, you do see in the playoffs when you're playing every other day and you're playing that type of meaningful basketball games, these last few years, it could be a lot on Bron. So now that you got Luka, along with Austin Reeves, who's been playing the best basketball of his career, Hillbilly Kobe, who I like a little bit. He is a Sooner, so it's tough for me to give an Oklahoma guy love, but I gotta salute Austin Reeves. White boy be balling, he be hooping. So it's for the first game, it worked out. We'll see how it goes for these next few. All-Star break being this weekend, and for the rest of the season. But Luka's still a bad defender. Like, I don't think that's going to change. He's still going to be a liability defensively. It's just, can they score more points to where his defense isn't a factor? That's the main thing that I would focus on if I'm JJ Redick. And you get enough stops and then just completely be able to outscore teams because the offensive firepower is that much of a juggernaut. That's what you're going to have to rely on if you're a Lakers fan. Yeah, Jackson Hayes. Good point, Roy. Our boy Jackson Hayes, he's their center since Mark Williams failed the physical because the Charlotte Hornets tried to pull a freaking fast one, and that trade didn't go through. So now you got former Tennessee Vol Dalton Knecht looking awkward as hell, which, okay, he told JJ Redick he's going to need a couple of days for like mental health reasons because they traded his ass and it didn't go through. So now he's back in LA. I'm all for mental health. I think we should take it seriously and stuff like that. But dude, you're getting paid millions. Man up. Like, that's one of those, like, bro, they clearly didn't want you, but now you're back. You're getting paid millions. If you're able to play. Prove to the Lakers and everybody why it was a dumbass move to involve you in that trade. I'm not trying to hear I need a couple of days to think because I'm in my feelings and stuff. Like, again, if he is really going through some stuff, I will take back my words and apologize. As far as right now, though, Chip, I'm not with that. You're getting paid way too much to be in your feelings. Like, take that Kobe mentality because you're in LA and use that as fuel. Oh, these fools trying to trade me? What? When I get my minutes, I'm about to put on. I'm about to go to work to make them realize it was a dumbass move for them to even think about sending me to Charlotte. But him telling JJ, hey, coach, I need a couple of days to rest. Like, I'm in my feelings. I'm a little hurt. Like, I can't, I can't do it. I can't do it. Soft. That's soft, Dalton Knecht. Come on, bro. You tougher than that. That's why they traded you. Because you didn't have that right mentality. That's why they got rid of your ass. At least try to. You got to prove them wrong, bruh. That's a bad look to me. So, Dalton Knecht, get out your feelings and see what's going on for the rest of the season here. But, yeah, Lakers, once Luka gets more and more acclimated, they'll be fine.
All right, so where do you think KD finishes on that list?
Oh, gosh.
LeBron with 41,623 points. Kareem Karl Malone, 36,928. Kobe, 33,643. MJ, 32,292. Dirk, 31,560. Wilt, 31,419. And KD at 30,008.
Yeah, I think he could catch Kobe, maybe. I don't think he's catching Carl. 36. That's a lot.
I'm trying to see how many points per season.
Yeah, use that SMU degree. Put that to use, man. Figure out what
I'm on it. I'm on it. I'm going to tell you right now. That's what I do. Okay, so on average, come on. On average. Okay, so he had a stretch where he was 2,000 every year. When healthy, it was 2,000. He had 2,000. Okay, he had 2,000 in 23-24. And he played in 75 games. So when he's played at least 75 games, actually 72, he scores 2,000 points in a season. So another season would probably get him past Wilt and Dirk and right up next to MJ. 2 seasons probably gets him past Kobe.
Okay.
You see him playing 2 more seasons?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
For sure?
And I see him playing 2 seasons. Absolutely. He's so much more efficient than Kobe was, too. Kobe was chunking. Like, the attempts that Kobe Bryant had, especially post Shaquille O'Neal, like, KD's taking good shots and still shooting like close to over 50%, if not, around 48. He's one of those guys that you see 50, 40, 90 clubs, shooting over 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the free throw line. So it's just we got he could do it. He could for sure do it. But it's just a matter of how it's going to be.
He's 36. He'll be 37 in September.
Yeah.
But he's learned from LeBron that you got to spend money to stay conditioned and pay for massage and cryotherapy and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Not
to what Colin Cowherd saying or tried to say back in the day, him not having all that weight helps. Helps a lot. Like, dude ain't got to worry about Zion problems or Luka problems. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, even though the Achilles thing was an issue, it's been pretty durable. So, see, yeah, Quad's going at me because
Quad says, you know what? Oh, no, first he said this. He said, Zay, tell me you saw Luka icing his calf after the first 7 minutes in his debut. That's soft. And it's exactly why he's traded.
Okay, so go back and see what Quad said earlier because I didn't know this. So they left, to what Quad is saying, they left our guy, Dalton Connect, at the hotel because he thought he was traded. They left him there. So I guess they had to go back to get him. And that is another reason why he's in his feelings about, oh, you guys forgot about me. You guys, oh, man, like, I can't believe y'all would do this to me. I can't believe y'all don't want me. Like, that's the business,
Okay,
bro.
Easy there.
That's the business.
He's a rookie. Oh,
You play for
like
Rick Barnes,
what you
bro.
mean?
You play for Rick Barnes. Come on.
Hey, that'll mess with you as a rookie.
Oh, man.
They didn't even give him up. So why'd the team leave him at the hotel?
That was cold. That is cold. I'm not going to lie. That's messed up. Getting
What's
left
he
at the
supposed to
hotel. I ain't going to lie. I didn't know that, Quad. I appreciate you putting me on game. I didn't know that. Because that's true. That's messed up.
That's messed up.
That is. I ain't going to lie. But, bro, y'all getting paid. We got to flip that. We got to flip that negative energy to something positive.
That leads us to how's our boy doing running the show? He's green as baby poop too.
Who are we talking about here?
The coach of the Lakers.
Oh, JJ
Redick.
He's doing a pretty good job. I'm not gonna
But
lie.
he left one of his star players at the hotel because he thought he was getting traded.
One, he ain't no star. He's like the 9th, 10th man off the bench.
He was the highest draft pick they had in the draft.
2, he ain't driving the bus. What JJ got to do with it? This isn't like middle school where you're doing roll call. If I call your name out, say I. Are they
It's not
doing
like
that?
there's 100 guys on the team. You can kind of eyeball who's on the bus and see if one of your players is not there. Like a teammate, somebody.
Yo, that's cold-blooded. Okay, I'd be in my feelings a little bit too. I ain't gonna lie.
Don't act like you're Iron Man and you're impervious to all this stuff. Don't be.
Yeah, it's
sure-
one thing. It's
I'm
one
sure
thing.
Cece said some stuff to you that made you want to go home and watch favorite, reruns of The Bachelor or something.
That's different. That's my father, though. He's supposed to love me always. There were times where I'm contemplating that love. Like, damn, this is tough, man. This is tough. Just in front of the whole gym.
See, you were in your feelings a little bit.
All the time. All the time. But if I had millions in my pocket, I think them feelings would have been a little
Dalton
different.
Connect too.
I do like him. I do like his game. Like, he hit a rookie slump. That's for sure.
Well,
But
it's about right. Hit the wall.
yeah. And you're right. I was in my feelings, Quad, when A. Henry didn't invite me to get them lemon pepper rings at Magic City. That's why he got food poisoning, because karma's a B. He got food poisoning that same night. So him not hitting me up actually might have did me a favor, to be honest, because I would have been right there with him.
I can't believe we're still. Wasn't he out trying to? Oh no. Oh, never mind.
Yo, you wildin'. You
Yeah. Okay. So how about Kevin Durant?
Oh man.
Palooka, this is going to work like gangbusters for the Lakers. Is that your take?
I don't know about gangbusters. Like, I don't have them winning the finals or anything, but
How's Dallas going to do?
I don't know about them. Daniel Gafford just got hurt, so that's not good. Yeah, he's out for about 2 weeks, getting reevaluated. AD might be out for a freaking month. So
Yeah.
that's not good at all.
How do you think JJ Redick's doing with the Lakers?
I think he's doing a terrific job. I think he's doing a really good
They're
job.
the 4 seed right now in the West.
Yeah. I think he's doing a really good job. Now, he's going to have to shift his philosophy a little bit because Anthony Davis and Luka are two completely different players. And how does he make Luka fit with the roster that he has already? But I think he's done a really good job to have the Lakers where they are at right now. And again, he gets it. Smart guy, Duke guy. He's been around terrific coaches. Him and LeBron have an amazing relationship. They had that podcast together before he got the job. So he's a player's coach, but also he knows his stuff. He has good assistants around him like Scott Brooks and Nate McMillan, who have been head coaches. Like, that was probably
Wasn't he the head coach in Oklahoma City with
Yeah.
KD?
Yeah. And things like that, like he's not looking at those guys and being like, oh, they're going to step on my toes and they're not going to let me be the man. Like he has a good relationship with those guys, clearly.
Hey, A's hire A's.
Facts.
C's hire C's.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So,
all right. Now I guess we should get a couple mentions in before we get to the commentary, like McCall Custom Homes. Hey, you want to get custom work done when you're doing a renovation of a bathroom, a kitchen, extended outdoor space. The key in McCall Custom Homes is custom. Family owned and operated, father-son team, 50 years of experience, but they get the standard of work being done in Austin, Texas. Custom. So go check out their work at McCall Custom Homes on, Instagram, Facebook, and social media. But then get to McCall Custom Homes ATX.com and let them come out, share their vision for you. They're going to tell you what you need, what you don't need. And you're going to be, wow, look at this new bathroom, this new kitchen, this new extended outdoor space. McCall Custom Homes ATX.com. Cover three. It's my vibe. I mean, the food. The food is what it's all about. I mean, I love the vibe of Cover 3 on Anderson up in Round Rock off Old Settlers. Of course, Cover 2 at 183 in Lake Creek. The food's going to bring you back every time. It's also a great place to watch your favorite team. Brunch on the weekends, the do-it-yourself Bloody Mary bar, the $7 social hour menu. Come on, get to Cover 3. Take care of you. Hey, and AV consultations. Come on. When you're ready for the big screen of your dreams, surround sound, surveillance, electronic shades, new lighting.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations. We've been providing custom electronic systems for Central Texas for more than 36 years. And
Old man, I think they all know who you are and what your company does. This is Camilla McKay. The old man believes in big fun and big ideas. He can make dreams come true, so why not dream big? I've been up in Boston, but I know the old man and all his friends and fellow radio heads have been spreading the holiday spirit here in Texas. Why should we stop there? Keep spreading the good feelings all over. Audiovisual Consultations carries all major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And you don't have to leave your house. Just like Santa, they deliver the gifts to you.
yeah, I like that, kid. Throw a party, hang out with your friends, catch a concert.
That's all fun and good, but can we get back to the business? You can give us a call at 512-255-8678 or visit our website at avconsultations.com for some cool electronics.
Oh, now you're forgetting something.
And as always, hug your kids. We only pretend to be annoyed. Watch some games with your friends and make love to whoever the hell you want.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations.
Hello.
We've been providing custom
We
electronic
got it on
systems.
repeat. Hey, Insult Traders Coastal Cooking. Get in there. Get in there for happy hour. Check out the incredible best selection of raw oysters in Austin. $5 off the appetizer menu, which has the mussels, the crab cake, the grilled oysters, the New Orleans barbecue shrimp. But the entire menu, this is the best seafood in Austin. This is the seafood restaurant of Jack Gilmore, who gives you Jack Allen's Kitchen. Salt Traders Coastal Cooking, right there at Rolling Wood and Mopac in that lovely Zilker area, and up north in Round Rock at Old Settlers. All right, Zay, for the chip shot today, I'm just going to recap a little bit of what Jerry Palm, CBS bracketology expert, told me earlier today. That Texas probably has to win 4 of its last 6 regular season games. He said it doesn't really matter which 4, but 4 of 6, not including the conference tournament, to hang around the bubble, to stay on the bubble. because they are 7-10 in wins against quad 1, 2, and 3 teams. Don't ask me to get into all that, but if you go to the NCAA net rankings, it explains it all. But yeah, so the committee doesn't really care about Texas's health. Texas doesn't have a bunch of good wins that make you say, oh man, it'd really be bad if Texas wasn't in the tournament. Or they don't have a player. You know, sometimes there's a player that the whole country loves on a bubble team, and that gets them into the tournament. Because it's all about TV ratings. Remember, CBS pays for the NCAA. The revenue from the NCAA men's basketball tournament, the television revenue. You know, you're watching on CBS, you're watching on True TV and TNT and TBS. All that television revenue pays for the entire NCAA. So if you got a great player and you're a bubble team, you're probably going to get in. So Texas doesn't have that. Texas doesn't have the draw. They're Texas. Texas fans typically tune into stuff, and people tune in to watch Texas because they either love Texas or they hate Texas. But either way, they want to see what Texas is doing. They want to cheer against them. They want to cheer for them. But Texas draws them in like Notre Dame and the Yankees and the Lakers. You're kind of like, oh, let me just see what's going on here. So, yeah, this is it's a pivotal time in the Texas basketball program. I know the RT is like your kinfolk. Your dad helped him get a job in college basketball coaching. Everyone loves RT. Yeah. And we had some questions earlier saying, you know, why do you think CDC hired him? CDC hired him because that team without Chris Beard, which in the fans' minds was, way to go, RT, way to carry us to within, it was tied with Miami with a minute left when our guy, Brock Cunningham, got called for undercutting Omiri or Omar or whatever his name is. Guy had
all reputation. Horrible call. All reputation.
Now at Baylor, that guy. But he got hired because he took him to the Elite Eight and within a whisker of the Final Four, and he'd been with Rick Barnes, and so, you know, if you poured truth serum into Chris Del Conte was looking at other coaches right up until Texas, you know, beat Xavier, I'd say. Like, everyone's like, oh, that was a bad hire. I don't know that Chris Del Conte wanted to hire RT until they got to the Elite Eight. So, but to RT's credit, he got that team to play together. They did good things. They beat Xavier without Dylan Dizu. They sure as hell needed Dylan Dizu against Miami and all that length. But yeah, I mean, this is not I'm sure Ronnie Terry knows that he doesn't have a lot of benefit of the doubt, because he wasn't like he was a Final Four coach coming to Texas. He was the top assistant of Chris Beard, got elevated. And how often does that work out? It works out from time to time. We're kind of watching it at Duke, right? Shire was an assistant to Mike Krzyzewski. But anyway, this is a critical time for Texas basketball. They get drilled by 23 last night against a great Alabama team. They hit 17 threes, 17 to 29. 4 different guys hit at least 3 threes.
So anything they wanted. They got any shot they wanted. They play so fast, man. They're so athletic. And to what my man Chan said on the Coda text line about RT, kind of what you just said, is it CDC's fault and how many years on his contract does he have? RT was given a 5-year, $15.3 million contract, March 2023, and it includes a $7.2 million buyout. So there's that. Yeah, RT, sweet guy, loves the university, means well, but we just said, like you just said, Chip, like A's hire A's, B's hire C's. I can't say Frank Have, McClain, Chappelle have been money this year. I can't say that, especially Frank Have, who's been in charge of the offense. The offense has gotten better, going from the A&M game and the Missouri game, but even in those, you still struggled scoring the ball. And besides Trey Johnson, it seems like everybody else, Tremont Mark, Arthur Kaluma, Jordan Pope, guys that have been 1,000-point scorers in their collegiate careers before they got to Texas, cannot find a rhythm at all. And now the defense is starting to be a problem too. So that might be what gets RT got, is just not hiring the right guys to come in. Like Donald Wald, he went with Coach Beard. That dude's offense, pretty good. Knows what's going on, knows what he's talking about. And when he was here with RT on that Elite Eight team, that Elite Eight team could score, seemed like any time they wanted. And plus, they had so many different guys. Like Marcus Carr was first team all conference that season. We saw what Dylan DeSue started to do once March came around before he got hurt. Serge Jabari Rice will always be a fan favorite for Longhorn faithful for how good he was in that lone year that he was there. So the talent was a lot different on that Elite Eight team than it was / is these past 2 years, where Max A. Smith was your guy last year, and this season it's Trey Johnson. But yeah, it's just unfortunate. It really is. And I hope they could turn it around. They still have a chance to. Like, beating Kentucky would be a huge win, even though Kentucky is not coming in 100%. That would still be huge. It's just 40 minutes. Can they play a full 40 minutes? I don't know at this point. But
all right, let's get to the right call.
All right. For that, though, we got to give a shout out to the mentions like Covert BK, family owned and operated automotive dealerships in the greater Austin area that have been around since 100 years ago. That is a long time, providing customers with new and pre-owned vehicles. Go visit them at the beautiful 42 acres located in the Hill Country. 7 terrific brands to choose from: Buick, GMC, Ram, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, and Cadillac. Wifey and I are Covert BK people, and we absolutely love our Buick Encore, and you could get like us too. So if you want to see all the latest specials in inventory, go to covertbk.com to see all that. Shout out to my man Daniel, Marcus, Jerome, and the rest of the staff that hooked us up and then some at Covert BK. Nobody beats a Covert deal. Not now, not ever. And Leaf Landscape Supply, full service wholesale and retail plant nursery and landscape supplier here in the ATX. 2 amazing locations. If you're down south, check them out off of Monterey Oats and 290. If you're up north, check them out at Pond Springs. They're looking for large quantities of supplies to fulfill any landscaping job, rare plants, specialty plants, a collection of just different trendy house plants. They're your one-stop shop for everything you need. So check out their website at leaflandscapesupply.com. And remember, when you go in and you make a purchase, let them know your boy Zay Collier and Texas Sports Unfiltered told you about it. You get 10% off. Can't beat that. 10% off at Leaf Landscape Supply. All right, Chip, a couple of petty things for the right call today. Enough of Texas basketball talk. I'm not getting into that anymore. Hopefully, don't have to get into that till Friday when we preview Kentucky. But Xavier Worthy woke up on the petty side this morning because X-Man put out a tweet hating on Steve Smith, who hated on X-Man during the draft process last year. Here's what Steve Smith, former Carolina Panther, big-time Pro Bowl, All-Pro wide receiver, had to say about Xavier Worthy prior to getting drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs.
You cannot sit here and tell me that Worthy has jumped in the top 4 best wide receivers in the draft based on the film. I'm worried about, more than anything, because of his speed, will he be overdrafted? Will someone pick him in a spot that all of a sudden he has to be their number 1 wide receiver? Unexpected expectation. Maybe to some degree, I would say, unrealistic expectation. You can never fulfill it.
Xavier Worthy said this dude tried to have me on his podcast after he was talking all this mess. So you know Xavier Worthy, he's petty. He keeps receipts. Y'all remember his exit video from Texas where he pulled up all the tweets and was talking about, y'all wanted me gone. Y'all said all this stuff about me, and now look at me. Now look at him shining this rookie year, breaking records for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Where does that rate on the Perse Hilton petty scale?
Very petty. Very, very petty. Absolutely.
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10.
It's about an 8. It's about an 8. Because again, Steve Smith ain't no punk. Steve Smith's one of my favorite receivers of all time. Not only would he go for about 8 catches, $175, 2 touchdowns, he'll fight you afterwards. He didn't back down for nobody. He was undersized himself. Steve Smith was one of them ones. So for X to come out and say this on Twitter and be like, yo, I remember what you said about me, bro. Don't try to bring me on your podcast now.
What exactly did Worthy say?
He said in a tweet where he reposted the video that we just watched, but wanted me on your podcast.
Even though that analysis from Steve Smith was from before the draft?
Yes.
Okay, so Steve Smith wanted him on his podcast recently.
Yes.
Okay.
And X was like, nah, I'm not going to give you the time of day, bro. You don't deserve it.
Come on, man.
I'm with that. Keep those receipts. If that's what drives you, haters talking bad about you, saying that you ain't going to be nothing.
You know what that's going to do, though? It's going to cost him money. It's going to cost him endorsement money. The guy just became a star. Don't you want to make some endorsement money? Don't you want to?
What's that have to do with endorsement money? What does Steve Smith got to do with it?
Being petty?
Oh, man, not all the time.
Gatorade doesn't like that. Gatorade doesn't like petty, even though some of their ad slogans are petty.
Yeah, what you mean?
Built around Jordan and
the pettiest of all petty, Michael Jordan. Yeah, they love it. Speaking of Jordan, Luka is a Jordan player,
athlete.
A Jordan athlete. Yeah, they're playing out a campaign that says "Good luck," and then it has Luka's picture in black and white, and underneath it says "Y'all." Good luck, y'all, which is a direct shot to the Dallas Mavericks. Y'all mucked up. You know you messed up, right? Going Menace to Society. You know you messed up. So, yeah, a lot of petty going on right now, which I support all petty.
Oh, yeah. No, you're the king of petty.
Have to. Petty makes the world go round. We need more petty folks.
Right. And you do a great job of collecting everyone else is petty.
I try.
And then sharing it with us.
I try. I got more tomorrow, though, before we bring on Matt and Patrick. I got more tomorrow, so
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. There's a lot going on right now.
Just bringing the fellas. Patrick Davis, Matt Galatzan. What's up, fellas?
How y'all doing? How you doing today? It's it wasn't fun last night, but it'll be fun today. That's where we'll put it.
Hey,
I know, man. It was that was a run. I mean, we knew it was going to be Vegas really got my hopes up just a little bit too much on that one.
Yeah, 4.5.
That was a rough one to watch.
That 4.5, the 4.5 made me believe that maybe we all missed something. And then you're like, man, sometimes you know better than Vegas. Sometimes.
Yeah.
And then 17 threes later, 17 of 29 from three.
They could not miss.
Couldn't
They
miss.
could not. The level of they could not miss was legendary. And for Texas, it was the other way around.
Yeah.
Everything. As we go 17 to 29.
Yeah,
I thought you meant the 17 we missed.
Yeah.
Can I get a hand up though? Just like, do they have to be that wide open? It seemed like every three they took wide ass open.
Can we at least get the Luke Cornett contest?
Where
Luke Cornett contest, he stands like halfway between them and the basket and then jumps to block the view of the rim. It's a weird, different way to do it, but it works. They shoot pretty low percentage to get it, but we didn't even do that. We just kind of looked at him. We're like, man, y'all are better than us, aren't you? It was bad. It was bad.
Hey, we'll let y'all take it away. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you tomorrow at 2.
See
Thanks,
y'all
guys.
tomorrow. Thank you there to Chip and Zay. Welcome in to Open Gym. Myself, Patrick Davis, my co-host, publisher over at SI.com for the Texas Longhorns, Matt Galatzan. On the show today, we will get into that Texas basketball game. Of course, we will start with that. We'll go through your breaks and of how it went down and where we're at now with Rodney Terry and Texas fan base. And, you know, I think a lot of Texas fans starting to look a little bit past the season at this point. We're starting to get there. We'll get into that. We'll get a little bit into the Texas coaches search for the new safeties coach after Blake Gideon took off. So we'll get a little bit into that one as well. Texas football moved a game today or yesterday night or today. They moved a game. We'll talk a little bit about that and Sark's viewpoint on the scheduling and why they are moving these games around. Also get into the man Kevin Durant reaching another career milestone. That is coming up on the show. And you know what? If we have time, we'll get into a little bit of Matt Patricia going to Ohio State and just the interesting hire. But we'll see how that one works out. We'll get into all of that. But let's talk to our co-host first. And let's remind everybody, I do have the text line now. So 512-222-9328. You can get to us on the text line or hit us up in the comments right here on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and X and wherever else you find us. Hop in there. Open Gym is open to everybody. We want to have everybody come play with us here at Open Gym. So come on, but let's go say hi to our co-host Matt Galatzan today from Texas Longhorns on SI. Matt, I know it was probably not a fun last night, but how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. We talked yesterday about Trey Johnson getting off to a hot start and how that doesn't typically happen. And then he actually got off to a pretty good start yesterday. It's like, okay, here we go. And then it just all collapsed. So that was kind of difficult to watch. Outside of that, man, everything's good. Everything's good. Show number 2, we're rocking and rolling, and we're going to have the text line today. So it's going to be even more fun.
Yes, text line's open. The chat line on the stream is open. We want you to come and join us with your takes as well. We'll get a little bit into Rodney Terry discussion here in about 15, 20 minutes. We'll start getting into that a little bit more so you get your opinions on that. But let's talk about the game last night first. Get that out of the way. That this was a Texas game that went from bad to worse. It actually went from okay for 4 minutes. 6 minutes, it was okay. And then it went downhill pretty quickly. It was interesting because Trey Johnson usually is a little bit of a slower start. They really came out and Rodney Terry understood what the game plan was early. Get the ball into Trey Johnson's hand. We got to move. I saw him a lot of times early in this game pushing Julian Larry. They also started Julian Larry, not Jordan Pope was not the starting lineup in this game with Tremont Mark coming back. They started Julian Larry, had Jordan Pope come off the bench. I'll get to that in a second, but you saw him pushing it. Julian Larry was coming up a little slow sometimes, and Rodney's like, let's go. We cannot, if we slow down, they're going to kill us because we're not great in half court, and they're great coming out of this. And if we're not thinking fast, it's never going to work. And they tried to get to Trey. He hit some shots early. The defense, because Texas was hitting shots, the defense for Texas was playing a lot better. You're able to get back and get set when you're able to get them out and you're able to make them have to take the ball out of bounds on a made shot. You're able to get back and get set a little bit better, get on the guys you want to defend instead of having to go back and just switch into lineups you're not in. They're able to find the odd man out. That's how you get a lot of open threes, guys not being where they're supposed to be. So you have all that. That happens. Then a couple shots miss, and it just unravels from there. Of a couple shots miss, and immediately when we see Trey Johnson miss a couple, maybe the ball doesn't get to him, whoever misses a shot on the other end, now Alabama just starts to exploit it. And that's when they come back, they tie the game, and then all of a sudden they're off to the races. And Texas cannot get a shot to fall. Alabama hits some hard threes, and then the threes get easier and easier. And while they're hitting them, and you're not contesting it anymore. I know they killed you in the paint too, but at a certain point, I'd rather let's trade twos. Let's go. Maybe we can hit some threes and get back at them, but you just can't let them kill you from the three-point arc like it did. It was basically over from that point. You saw a couple points where they started to try and push back. They play really good defense for 2 or 3 times, but they couldn't get a rebound, and Alabama just fought for it, and the ball bounced the way where they were in the right place. And that's somewhat of luck, and that's a lot of preparation and a lot of energy. And you saw, too, at the end of that game, man, the depth of Alabama destroyed a team that with Texas that really didn't have much depth going into the game. With Devin Pryor out, Kendall Weaver is out, and then a kind of beat up Tremont Mark, who played 37 minutes in the game, but it kind of beat up Tremont Mark, who's not at full speed, at least not on the offensive end. You have all of that, and then Arthur Kaluma goes down, plays 11 minutes for you, has a knee injury, and now you lose Arthur Kaluma, who was your okay, maybe we can slow it down in the half court a little bit and throw it down to Kluma. That entire plan is gone now, too. It just felt like there was a plan, and it fell apart pretty quick. And by the time it did, you couldn't even get to the fact that you put Jordan Pope on the bench because you said, we know we can't let Sears start the game hot on us. So we're gonna put Julian Larry out there and just go after him. And then we don't have a spark plug off the bench. Jordan Pope might be our spark plug. When we know Trey Johnson's getting double teamed now because he's hit a few shots and we really ran into him, we can put in a spark plug that's Jordan Pope. You were already it was starting to be pulled away before you even got to that game plan to have your spark plug at Jordan Pope. I think that plan could work if you had all your other guys, but it just felt like it was too little, too late. And that's kind of the case for this season right now. I mean, what did you see coming out of this game that it just felt like they were never able to get out of the gates?
Well, I mean, honestly, I kind of just saw a Final Four team playing a team that's not going to make the tournament, and it went about chalk. You know, it's really hard to stay in a game against a team that talented when they're hitting 58.6% from three. You know, they're 18 of 20 from the line. You know, they're out rebounding you 41 to 25. Alabama just dominated every important stat in the game. You only had 3 guys in double figures. Alabama had 3 guys in double figures off their bench.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really the story of the game right there. Obviously, the Kaluma thing hurt, but even if he hadn't gotten hurt, you know, I don't think the result would have been totally different.
No.
It's just kind of unfortunate because you really needed to at least put a good showing in this game to show the selection committee, okay, like, you know, we play good teams tough. I know it's, you know, a loss is a loss and a win is a win and all that kind of stuff, but a 23-point blowout in a game that you really needed to try to get to have a shot at the postseason is really brutal. You did have a little bit of a spark off the bench with Jason Kent. He had 19.
Yeah, he did his best game.
Yeah, but outside of that, absolutely. But outside of that, you know, there wasn't really much offense. The depth wasn't there. I thought it was hilarious that we talked about yesterday how Trey Johnson never gets off to a fast start, and then he has probably his best start of the season, arguably.
Yeah,
and then the wheels just fall off. So
no, and I mean, you know, and look, we're about to talk bad about Rodney Terry in a second, so I'll give him credit that he did have Trey Johnson ready to go, and he set up a game plan to get Trey Johnson going early and running a lot of screens and just trying to fight, make Alabama fight, try and play him tough. Maybe you can wear him down if they're going to try and run a lot. Maybe you can get him through. Maybe you can get some penalties or fouls. I mean, I think there's all of that kind of happening in the game plan early to get Trey Johnson going, and it worked. but you can't. That's not a 40-minute strategy. And Tremont Mark, has to hit some shots. He's 0 for 3 from 3-pointers. He's 2 for 12 in the game. He's got the shoulder injury. It's that weird thing. He's got a right shoulder injury, which you would say, well, then he can't shoot at all. He's a left-handed shooter, though. So he can still shoot, but it feels like that's off. Arthur Kaluma was 0 for 4 in the game before he went out. Caden Shedrick's 3 for 10. They could not make around the basket even. They couldn't get anything going around the basket. That's where you want to see people try and finish a little bit stronger and go up. I'll give the refs credit. They let him play most of the game. There's a couple called, but for the most part, they let him play, which is what you want to see, especially in a game like that. Texas would want you to play, and Alabama's going to want you to play. So I think that, it just came down to it of you didn't have the players ready. You needed a Kendall Weaver. You need all the defense you can get going up against a powerhouse like Alabama. You don't have that. Tremont Mark is not the same player he was. Arthur Kaluma was not the same player. And then you take a guy, Jordan Pope, that going into this season is supposed to be your third best player. And he's coming off your bench because you feel that he is such a negative on defense. And he's not playing well with others right now because it's Trey Johnson's team, and he doesn't necessarily flow into an offense where the ball has to go to Trey Johnson first every time. I think Jordan Pope would like to have the ball and decide, and I'll either score kicking it, or I'll score going to the basket, or I'll kick it out to you. It just felt like it feels like you really, really saw the difference of a team that was constructed correctly. And now part of that is you get a guy like Griffin, who's there and is not an NBA prospect, but he's a really, really good college player. A guy like that is huge to have on this. When you see Grant Nelson, I'm sorry to say Griffin, but when you see him come out, he is going to be a big piece for you, that he's able to go inside and score. And then Jaren Stevenson comes out and has his best game, which I feel like Texas has had that happen to him like twice or 3 times this season, that you game plan for all their players and then one guy just goes off because you don't have the depth defensively. And you're able to stop 2 guys, but they can just find it. And when they get you over on Trey Johnson's guy, okay, we think we can exploit Trey Johnson. If you get on Jordan Pope, we can exploit Jordan Pope. We feel like we can exploit some of these mismatches when we get them. And, when you have those pieces going, Mark Sears doesn't have a great game. You're able to hold him. He's 18 points, but he doesn't have a great game. Grant Nelson only has 7 points in the game, 6 rebounds. It's not like he has this huge game against you. You stop their guys. If you say Nelson and Sears are going to buy for 25, I think you're pretty thrilled as a Texas defensive coach. The problem is if you say then Stevenson has 22 and they got 3 guys in double digits off their bench, you go, well, crap, where we've got enough pieces going well in the main game plan, but we just don't have our guys coached up well enough in the back end, that when things start to go wrong, that they're covering all the pieces that need to be there. So it is a difficult piece for this Texas team looking right now, that roster construction wise, it's not a tournament team. Now, maybe with a healthy Tremont Mark who can hit some shots, and a healthy Arthur Kaluma and Kendall Weaver coming back and becoming that guy, maybe you're a tournament team, but it still doesn't feel like you're even close to a team that can make it to the second weekend, unless Trey Johnson evolves. It was a 24-point game, and they tried to get him the ball every chance. Unless he evolves into a 50% three-point shooter for the rest of the season, which I know he shot 50% this game, was 4 for 8. But if he turns into a 50% three-point shooter, then maybe you could get through a couple teams and you get seated in the right area that, I mean, you're basically now talking about if you win out, you're in, but one more loss feels like it's really starting to put that edge that you're not able to beat a big time team. And you go Saturday against Kentucky. If you don't get that win, it's really hard to say on the resume, you don't have another team on that resume that's going to feel big enough to feel worthy of putting you in above anybody else. And your best shot is to end up in that first 4 that's going to be playing. It's kind of your best shot at that point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. If they don't find a way to win on Saturday against Kentucky, the season's over. I think if they beat Kentucky and they lose one of these games they're not supposed to lose on the back end of the schedule, like, Oklahoma or whatever the case may be, it's really hard to find a path, man. It's just really, really difficult. And that's got to be kind of deflating, because when your back's against the wall, you usually like to see your players play their best basketball.
Yeah.
And these guys just didn't do that last night. There wasn't, I mean, outside of Trey Johnson, there wasn't anybody who really stood out. Jason Kent had his best game, but that's just not enough. You need Jordan Pope to go for, 20, 25 in this game. You need Tremont Mark to be better than 2 for 12. You need, and there's no signs of any of that changing going forward either. Because, and I know it's like you mentioned, it's Tremont Mark's right shoulder, right?
Yes.
And he's a left-handed shooter, but that still completely throws off your comfortability and your mobility for your whole shooting motion. It's not just the one arm. So unless he can turn a corner here pretty quick and get healthy pretty quick, that it's looking real dark, man.
No, it is. I mean, and he goes 2 for 4 from the free throw line too. It just feels like everything in his shot. And then you also throw in the fact that they're trying to get you to probably not shoot as much when you're not playing. So you can't be in the gym trying to get back right, because again, you're doing rehab and they're trying to get you healthy. And for all these guys too, there's always this world in college basketball that's tough. You understand that it is such a cycle now that you're not talking about 4-year players anymore, and you're not even talking really about 2-year players in a lot of times. But a lot of these guys, their dream is to go play at another level. And so for like a guy like Mark, where he says, okay, I've got enough that I'm going to get some interest and I'll have workouts with teams. I need to be healthy for those workouts. And if I can go play at an NBA level, even G League to a point, it helps you in recruiting and it helps you get other transfers. But if transfers are coming here and they're lowering draft stock, then that's something every other school is going to tell you when you're talking about transferring to Texas. Hey, man, you saw that these guys are transferring in as top regarded transfers, and whether that's true or not, and they could play at that level, that's a sales pitch against you. That feels like where we're getting to with some of these guys. And with Mark, it feels like it's mostly injuries, that he started the season in a boot. He wasn't playing there. He missed so many offseason workouts. Now he's got a shoulder injury. He has not really been able to practice. It goes into this whole point of, is this an issue of a team that, never got going because they never got to play together and they never really got the time to be healthy together? Or is there just other problems? And that's as we get into Rodney Terry, that's where, you have to sit and go, there's blame that goes around for a lot of things. There's blame that goes to the coaching staff. There's blame that goes to the injuries. There's blame that goes to the general manager and the roster construction, who they got in the transfer portal, not being able to maintain more freshmen coming in. You have a Nick Cody that came in and he's playing a few minutes for you, but you're not really getting anything out of anybody young that came into your program. You weren't able to get 2 or 3 young guys that maybe could give you some minutes right now when you have all these injuries. So you weren't able to back up anything. You weren't able to go more than 8 deep because you can't sell anybody that you will build them as a program. So from that point on, from not being able to get enough of a recruiting class to the transfer portal, just misjudging some of these guys, to the coaching plan going to the SEC, that it's been a little bit different of how you felt the game was going to be called and the game played in the SEC. You felt that was a little going to be different. You're kind of still in Big 12 mode coming over. All of those are problems, and they're not all on Rodney Terry's shoulders. The problem is when you're the head coach, especially of a big program, everything's going to come down to you. And it will come down to that. We've seen it from multiple people here on the line. We appreciate everybody listening. We'll shout out Shady Sports there. Says, hook 'em open, Jim. Double D said he didn't get to say this yesterday, but I was wondering for a while when they bring you in. I appreciate you, Double D, for listening. Glad to be here. Jack Burton next says, there's a tornado on the ground in Mississippi. Hope everybody is safe there if we have anybody listening in Mississippi. But all those pieces together, you say, this is a team where there's been boos for Rodney Terry. It's not on him completely. There's a lot of things that went wrong this season for Texas to not be right now look like they're not going to make the tournament. There's a lot of things that went wrong, but here we are, and who's going to take it? on the chin. And for a guy like Rodney, he knew from day one. I guarantee CDC even told him, hey man, you earned this job. We probably weren't going to give it to you. You earned it, but you get how short that leash, like you can't not make the turn. You have to build up this because they're not going to give you a chance here at Texas. You just don't get to. You have to make it on your own, and he's not doing it right now. And so I don't like the boos, especially not when there's another coach in the building that you maybe want to talk to at some point. If you get rid of Rodney Terry, I'd like to show a better fan base for him. But I do get the frustration of this season. It's hard to watch, man. This is the hardest team to watch for Texas basketball. I think Shaka had a few of them, but it's been really difficult to watch this team because they just look not cohesive in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's been really hard to watch all season. My thing with Rodney Terry is, look, at the end of the day, the head coach is going to get the brunt of the blame no matter what. He's the one that ultimately constructed the roster. He's the one that is putting these guys out on the floor, and he's the one that's coming up with the game plans. Obviously, the injuries are unfortunate. The inconsistencies are unfortunate, but it all has to fall back on him. And even if he had another season, even if you're like, okay, we believe this was an aberration and we believe that Rodney Terry can get this thing turned around, it's going to be really hard to get the fan base back behind him. Because if he doesn't come out, let's say they give him another year, if he doesn't come out, win 20 to 23 games, finish high in the SEC, make the tournament, win a couple games, he's gone anyway. And the odds of that happening with the roster they have now, with the way that the program has been trending since he took over, it was like he took over and things went pretty well at first, and it's just slowly kind of gotten off the rails. And it's really hard to put any confidence behind that. And it sucks for him because Rodney Terry is a great guy. He definitely earned the job. I've always been a big RT fan, but at a certain point, you got to put your feelings aside and you got to resurrect the program. You got to go in a different direction. I feel like that's exactly where this is headed.
Yeah, and it feels like right now. And I mean, yeah, if they turn it around, they go make a run, they do all those pieces, we can rediscuss it and relitigate what we want to put into this team. But at this, looking at it right now, it's where the axe is going to fall. And I'm also, and I'll say this again, I like Chris Ogden, but I throw his name in there as well. I think he's just as much to blame on roster construction as Rodney Terry is right now as a general manager. But I think he deserves another year to try and rebuild this as well. But I get why it's probably not going to happen. I think if you don't have the guy, if you go out there and you make a few phone calls and you see what's up, and you're talking about bringing in somebody that maybe is a 1-year phenom and doesn't have the track record, and there's not a lot to believe that it's really going to be any different. They're going to try and change a lot of things. I don't know if that's going to do enough for you to make it where you say, let's try one more year. We think Rodney will get us back into the tournament. We think we can put a little bit more money into the program and maybe get one more player on there, or, 2 more players, get some else where we, reevaluate what we were looking at in the offseason, learn from our mistakes, and then rebuild into next year. Hope the injury trouble is not what it was. The flip of that is you have to make that decision real quick if you're going, because you're talking about recruiting, you're talking about bringing guys in the transfer portal and everything else, and who the coach is massively shifts that. And so if you say, we're going to wait on it, and then we still don't get the big name coach, your next 2 seasons are probably fried. Mm-hmm. And we talk about, you're losing the fans' bases, but if you bring in a guy who's not there, I pulled up an article with some names that are in the conversation for coach of the year right now, just to kind of go through and give you a baseline of what may be out there of coaches that you can look at and say, these are the guys that are working in today's era. These are the guys, if they're available or not, who you may be looking at. And I'll also tell you, there's probably going to be another big job available out there. North Carolina, there's a very good chance Hubie Brown is out at North Carolina. Hubert, is it Hubert?
Hubert Davis.
Davis. I don't know why I can't remember Davis, but I was like, but
I feel like you would remember that one.
Hubert Davis is probably gone in North Carolina as well, because they are very heavily underperforming right now. So that is another big job that may be out there that a lot of teams and a lot of coaches are really, really going to be looking at to bring in. So that is just something to keep in mind, that if you say they're bringing another coach, then you have to judge where you're going to be able to pull somebody out of. But just looking at some of those names that are around there, you look at right now, Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl's not coming. I mean, he's going to be happy in Auburn right now. I think he's also got a little bit of a history behind him that they may not touch as much. It's mostly gone. But I think Bruce Pearl's fine in Auburn. I don't know if Texas would want to go after him anyway. I don't know if that's where they want to go. He's having a great season. It's in conference. So I just don't know if that's one. He's a great coach, but I don't know. It feels like he may be a little bit much for what Texas would want to bring in as a basketball coach.
So, yeah.
We look at Pat Kelsey over in Louisville. He's a good coach, but he's a one-year guy. He's a coach that's been really good this season. And so it would be he's gettable, but it's a huge risk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, again, what you're going to see in a lot of this stuff is it's East Coast stuff where a lot of these coaches that are doing really well have a really good – they're really good at recruiting the East Coast and the Northeast and areas where there's a lot of great basketball talent, but they may not want to come to Texas. That was one of the problems with Shaka Smart is he really could recruit in that Illinois, Chicago, and a lot of great players out in Indiana. He could recruit that area, but he couldn't recruit the same in Texas. And so you have to worry about, can that transfer and can we recruit across country? Also on this, like Rick Pitino, Texas not bringing in Rick Pitino. Todd Golden from Florida is having a really good season. He has those allegations against him right now. So you're probably going to stand off of that. Even if they pass, you may not go after him. Florida's got a pretty good pocketbook as well. But I mean, he's a good coach. He's a really, really good coach, really good recruiter as well, depending on where all the allegations of misdeeds with students, I believe, it ends up. Todd Golden is a name that will be out there, depending on just where the NCAA and what the investigations find. Dennis Gates over there in Missouri, he turned that team around, but he's not really an option. Dennis Gates is one of those guys that is the team was bad before it was good. So he's also got a couple years of bad Missouri on his track record. And if you're going with that, you keep Rodney Terry. It's more of a lateral move at this point with the guy like Dennis Gates. Matt Painter's not leaving Purdue. He's been there for 20 years. Really good coach, not leaving. John Shayer is not leaving Duke. He's on this list. Rick Barnes is not coming back to Texas. He's on this list.
I would love that.
I would, but again, it's more of the same. You're like, okay, well, it's just kind of always more of the same. Tom Izzo, Michigan State, he's not leaving. He's been there for 30 years, 70 years old. He's not coming down here. And then Greg Gard has been in Wisconsin for 20, 30 years. So a lot of these names you see on there, Nate Oates isn't on this list. I think Nate Oates is a guy that you can look at as a possibility. They talked about it in a little bit in the game last night that Alabama didn't want to build him a new arena, and he wants a new arena. That is something that is enticing to some of these coaches, is to be able to get a new arena built and have better facilities. If Alabama's not willing to do that, would he listen to other offers, come to a place with a much newer facility, a much newer arena that's state of the art? And would he look more into that situation? He is someone that deals with a school that is blatantly a football first school. So I think that's one of those names that's very interesting to me, because all those pieces are somewhat there. And the question is, does he decide, I'm going to pull rank and take off? If you guys have any names you want to throw in there, I'm going to ask Matt if he's got some other names he wants to throw in or some ideas of where he'd like to go. But if you've got some names, we'll get to those right after that. We'll throw you on the text line or on the chat. You can throw in there if you have any other names. But Matt, who else are you kind of looking at? Is it a Bill Self from Kansas that you say, well, now we're in the SEC and there's more money to be made in the SEC, so you leave a historic school like Kansas? Is there some name that you think makes sense out there?
So the hard thing for me about a lot of the names that you mentioned, like John Shire, Bill Self, some of these guys, the Louisville coach, a lot of these guys are at basketball first schools.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's going to be really hard to convince somebody at a basketball first school who is the face of sports at that program, at that university, to leave to come to a school where football comes first. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, you can't have a guy that has any sort of, shady history like a Bruce Pearl, like a Golden from Florida, like a Patino.
And by the way, let me just say about Bruce Pearl, who has shady, because there was a lot, and what they actually got him on isn't that bad. Like,
no,
what he actually got in trouble for was having a recruit and his family over to a barbecue, and then at the barbecue, he told them, "Don't tell anybody, this is against the rules," and they could bust him for that. But there's thoughts he did a lot more, but that's what he actually got basically the 2-year, 3-year show cause for.
Right. But like after you go from a guy like Chris Beard, who,
I agree.
Say what you want about Chris Beard, that kind of put you in a position where you have to find somebody who's squeaky clean.
Yep.
You have to find somebody who, can get the fan base excited, but you have to find somebody who's also willing to be second in command to Steve Sarkisian. And all of that is going to be really difficult to find. I don't know that there's a guy out there that comes to mind for me that you can really hang your hat on outside. I like the Nate Oates idea, because when your coach is somebody who really wants the new facilities and he really wants the new arena, it doesn't just help with fan engagement and all those kinds of things. It helps with recruiting. That's one of the biggest things for recruits is I want to play in a big shiny arena. I want a cool locker room. I want this. I want that. I want all the shiny toys. And that's why I like the Nate Oates idea, because he can sell that kind of stuff. He can be like, okay,
yeah,
we're going to come here. You're going to have everything you want, and we can give you anything you need. But, the only guy that comes to mind for me is a guy who's been on TV for a couple of years, and that's Jay Wright. But I don't think that he would come to Texas. I don't think he's coming back into coaching anytime soon. Maybe if some job opened up that was amazing for him, like in North Carolina, that's one thing. But and that's another thing too, Patrick, is when you're looking for a new coach, and there's another program that is a basketball first school like North Carolina, they're going to get the first come, first serve. There's not a coach in the country who's looking to change their job who wouldn't go to North Carolina first over Texas. There's just not. So that also really kind of handicaps you a little bit. But I don't know. It's going to be difficult. It makes me believe that there is a chance that you have to try and bring back Rodney Terry, just because there might not be a guy out there outside of Nate Oates that you're like, okay, we can see this happen and we can make this work. And you just kind of kick the can down the road for another year. And it sucks for the program, obviously, because you want to get that program turned around. I'm sure Chris Del Conte does not want any of his major programs to be not making the postseason. He wants everything to be top of the line.
And let's be clear, Rodney Terry could come back next year, make the tournament again, win a game, and then all of a sudden you fall back in that place like, well, now we don't have the cause. Now we can't let him go. We were waiting and we were setting everything up for a year later, but he's still a good coach. His track record would still say that at Texas he could go into the tournament and win a game if things go correctly for him. So it's not saying that it couldn't all work out. But it's an interesting, it's that span of but I don't get it. Like, there's just a lot of names where it's going to be another crapshoot, and it is going to be, let's bring somebody in, and it could be much worse. The Nate Oates, why it's so fun is because it's a big name. It would get you excited, and the brand of basketball he plays is very exciting. It is something that, I know a lot of guys, there's a lot of old school fans for Texas basketball too, that say, we just want to play hard-nosed defensive basketball. The problem is, that is very, very hard to build your entire program around in today's game. And absolutely. I get you could, but the player type is not the same. The players that want to play that are much fewer and far between. So you want to build around a really fun offense and get players who want to play defense in that offense. And that's much easier, because when you're having fun on offense, you'll play defense all day. Like there's a lot of guys, like it's just much easier. You want to play defense if it means you get the ball on offense and the offense is fun. But if the offense is not if you're just playing defense and then they go down and go, to go set screens. Like, well, man, that's not, why am I coming? Why am I going to go to Texas if I'm just supposed to, if I'm supposed to just be in defensive stance and then set screens, I don't know if I want to do that. So I get it's a tough sell to bring in coaches that do that. There's just not a ton of names out there that make a lot of sense where they go. And the North Carolina problem, if they do let go Hubert Davis, it is going to be that just takes away a lot of names. And it also puts you behind the 8 ball that a lot of these guys are going to be waiting to hear. And North Carolina can screw you by saying, we're going to wait another 6 days to announce our coach and tell the guys who don't get it. And that's 6 days that you are really losing out on transfers or recruits or anything else. So I think there's a point in it. If you guys want to throw any names, see on the text line, we see Mark Few on the text line. I don't know. I don't think he'd want to leave. I feel like he's kind of got his own thing set up. And I don't know if he would want to come into a much, much bigger school at this point in his career. He's a really good coach. It's also a very different recruiting style. Extremely different recruiting style for Mark Few to come into a system now. And instead of being like, this is, you work hard and you get a degree. And then we put people into the NBA to being like, you are in a major city in downtown where we have all these great facilities. It's a way different sell. So there's a lot of pieces to it. I don't think he would come in the first place. I know you can probably offer him a little bit more money. But at the same part, I don't know if that would make it worth it because the cost of living, I'm sure, is way more expensive here too. So, that's kind of always and that's like that Scott Drew thing you talk about at Baylor, where people would come after him and he'd go, "Well, yeah, but I own Waco, like I'm the dude here. I can do whatever. I have a mansion. I have my kids go to school. I'm happy here, and if I go there, I'm just another coach." And I'm paying more for the place. I don't have this big, I get why there's certain coaches who go, man, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I don't need that. I don't need to prove it by going to another school.
Yeah. So I kind of want to go back to the thing that you said also about the defense and the style of play these days for a second, because I think that's a fantastic point, because in today's game with American players, you're not going to have the teams that you had back in the Rick Barnes era with James Thomas and Brian Boddicker and Brandon Mouton and all these guys who are hard-nosed defensive players and can also score and all these different things. You're just not going to find that these days. They're all going to, for the most part, the big recruits that you bring in are guys like Trey Johnson, who are going to be a one and done offensive dynamo, and the rest are just kind of pieces you're trying to fit around it, and that's really difficult to sustain at a place like Texas, at least at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of coaches, the more I think about it, the one thing that I could possibly think of that could be very interesting would be Bill Self, in the sense of, you had John Calipari at Kentucky and he was there for so long and he decided to leave because it just, he wanted to change the scenery finally. Maybe Bill Self or somebody like that has that same kind of mentality when they're, he's been in Lawrence for couldn't even tell you how long at this point. He's been there forever.
His name's been rumored around certain other jobs enough now, and a lot of them are NBA jobs, but a lot of times you just hear his name kind of brought up enough that you feel like, if nothing else, his agent is using it for leverage at Kansas.
Yeah,
if nothing else, but his name does get brought up.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's if North Carolina moves on from Hubert Davis, that's a guy you have to look real hard at anyway.
That's where they got their coach before Hubert Davis from.
Exactly.
Roy Williams came from Kansas and went there. So,
and it should tell you a lot also about the North Carolina job. I mean, obviously it's one of the most prestigious jobs in the country and it's historical and all of those things. But if that program can go to a program like Kansas and pull out one of the best coaches in college basketball history, they're going to get anybody they want. So,
I mean, there was connections. Roy Williams had connections to UNC and coached there and coached with Dean Smith. So there was a connection piece into it. It was, somewhat similar to a Chris Beard coming to Texas, where, you may not, and I get that's Texas Tech to Texas, we're better than all of that. But at the same point, that there was something of where he's like, dude, I've built a program here. I don't want to leave necessarily, but if you give me that job, then I'm going to take it. But there was some of that, but it is still, to your point, if you can steal from Kansas, you can steal from anybody.
Exactly. And the Mark Few idea is kind of the same to me as the Tom Izzo, all those kinds of jobs where they've been there forever, Matt Painter and all those kinds of things. I mean, basketball is everything for Gonzaga. He does whatever he wants. He runs that athletic program. A guy like that, outside of the whole recruiting thing, outside of the whole, big city and all that stuff, he has no reason to ever want to leave that job. He plays for national championships. And that's another thing about Bruce Pearl. Even if you decided to go in that direction, he's number one in the country with Auburn right now. What reason would he have to leave to come to a place like Texas that has never proven that they can compete for a championship?
Yeah, and Auburn could match our money. And I don't think they, overall they couldn't in everything, and I get that, but in just paying your college basketball coach, they can come up with the money to make him happen.
Yeah, Texas can steal a football coach from Auburn any day of the week. Yeah. Basketball, it's a lot different of a story. So they're definitely in a pretty tough predicament. I saw here by Roy Tempura, Royale Ivy. I mean that's something that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a good call there, Roy. Royale Ivy's an interesting one. We saw what he did in the Olympics. We know he deserves a head coaching job. I've talked to some people who know him and are around him, and they all seem to believe that he would have no problem handling the recruiting, because that's the first question you ever ask about an NBA coach is that guy going to be able to come in and go from coaching basketball months out of the year to being you're doing it constantly, you're constantly recruiting, you're in the transfer portal, all of that. The people that I've spoke to all believe that is a no-brainer that he could do it. I think the issue with a Royale Ivy, which if we're going to bring it up, which I'm not against Royale Ivy, by the way, I will say the issue is there is no, if it starts to go bad, it's immediately you have to pull the ripcord again. And it feels like you start to go down this rabbit hole of, well, he brought another guy without a track record, and how long do we give him in today's game where everybody wants everything to be turned around in 2 or 3 years? I don't know if he has the track record to give him the 3 to 4 years to make sure he's got everything figured out being a head coach in college basketball. And maybe he could do it faster. Maybe he could. We saw what he did in the Olympics. He did a great job in the Olympics. We know that he's been a great assistant coach in the NBA. Everyone speaks very highly of Royale Ivy. If he's the guy, if that's where CDC wants to go, and he says, I don't think we're going to get a Nate Oates, I don't think we're going to get somebody else, but we do want to make the move now because we don't want to kind of fall back into mediocrity where every 2 to 3 years we have a real miss-off year, but we're not building upwards. We're kind of plateauing and then dipping, which is where Texas basketball has sat for my entire life. There's not really, other than TJ Ford, there hasn't been a huge peak. So I think that there is a piece of, to the Royal Ivy, that's a really good poll, Roy. Like here the dog said Bob Knight. I don't think an 80-something-year-old Bob Knight's come back. And if you want to go Pat Knight, he's very available, and we're not taking him either. But the Royal Ivy's an interesting one. I think there's probably a few more names out there that if you really want to go through the list would be interesting. I remember we had the issue a year ago. Eric Musselman was the name, and everybody wanted to get Eric Musselman. And then Arkansas started to fall off, and everybody left, and he went to USC. And and now we also throw in that everyone in that went Pac-10 or Pac-12 or whatever you want to say to the Big Ten. That's just rough in basketball. It's so many games that you're having to travel for, and how they're trying to do that. The style of play is so different. That's a brutal one. I think they'll figure it out in a few years, but that's a rough transition. But that was a name, and you went, is that really a guy? Because you think 1 year he's automatically going to be this great. It's like college basketball. It's weird, and it's hard to find guys that are great year after year after year. But I don't mind. And then say one of our texters, quote Zay, let's get some big, tall, big South Sudanese brothers to play and guard the basket. Thank you, Chan, for that from Zay. And you can, they brought in stuff when Alex Wagmene was there. I believe that was who it was. That was somewhat adopted by RC Buford. And it was a piece where he wasn't really adopted, but it was a way to get him over to the U.S. that he had met him in a Basketball Without Borders. And that kind of opened up a big pipeline that was there for a minute, where you felt like you kind of had this NBA pipeline there. Royal Ivy could definitely bring that in. But I think you also, if you're Royal Ivy, you understand that cannot be what my calling card is. I need to use it, but I need to be a great college basketball coach that also has this thing, and not just I bring in 3 guys from the Sudanese every year, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean that's just a really unfortunate situation, man. I don't think there's a really good way you could go unless you get a Nate Oates. So I feel like it's probably going to get kicked down the road for another year if they can't find that guy. The thing about Royal Ivy to me, Olympics aside, is he was connected to the Texas job before RT. He was one of the guys that they were talking about, so he is on their radar. Mm-hmm. And there is a reason that they had him on their radar to begin with.
Oh yeah.
He's a defensive minded guy. He knows working in the NBA. He knows what it takes to get to the NBA. I feel like he could develop players, not the guys like Trey Johnson who are one and done, but the guys who are going to stick around for another extra year or two, which these days are few or far between. But there are some good things there. It's hard to imagine that they would take that kind of risk with a guy without the track record, because if you do that and it doesn't work, like you said, you're entering territory where your program is kind of in limbo for who knows how long. And that's not the kind of program that Texas wants to have. So, I honestly don't, it's a very hard road to see the end of. It's rocky, it's dark, but it's very hard to see the end of that road.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is, I don't know, it's going to be a rough find for them. They've got, and I mean, look, I think if you play well down the stretch, which you have not, you are 1-4 in your last 5 games. That is bad. That's bad. I know, you're talking about ranked teams in there, but there's 3 teams in there that were not ranked, and you're still 1-4 in that run. It makes you wonder how the end of the season with the injuries, does a Kaluma sit out a little bit more? Does a Tremont Mark? Do these guys just kind of start to take off at the end of the season and say, man, I'm looking for my future at this point? I'm not dying on that hill. In today's college basketball, they may not be those guys anymore that are going to go out and die on that hill. You got 6 games left. Kentucky's a big one this weekend. And then after that, they're winnable games the rest of the way. But if you go 3-3, I don't know if you can even pretend to wait anymore. And that's where it kind of gets scary. Is I think if you go 3-3, if you're an 18-win team going into the SEC tournament, and you're not going to the NIT probably because you're going to go ahead and get rid of your coach. I mean, I don't know. And so if he goes 5-1, then I think that conversation is much more real, because you're a 20-win team then. And that conversation of keeping him another year and maybe inching into the tournament all becomes a reality at a 5-1 for their last game. Now, it's hard if you don't beat Kentucky. If you beat Kentucky, now you have a quality win to throw in there, especially if you then beat Mississippi State too. They're ranked as well. So if you beat those 2 teams, it changes the mindset a little bit, and maybe the extra year for Rodney becomes a little bit more a reality. But right now, the way they're playing right this minute with the injuries that are still on this team, it feels like 3-3 is your best case.
Yeah, so the only road that I see if they go 3-3 is they'd have to make a lot of noise in the SEC tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm talking deep run, semifinal, final, knocking off a couple teams that they're not supposed to beat. And that just seems incredibly unlikely with the way the season's been going over those last couple weeks, with the injuries, with all of those different things. So I don't know, man.
It's exactly how we all feel about Texas basketball right now. I don't know, man. Let's go take we're going to listen to a little bit of a word from our sponsors real quick. We're going to come back. We'll get into some Texas football talk. We'll get into the search for the safeties coach, the secondary coach that Texas is looking for right now. We'll talk a little bit about that. Get into the news today that they moved one of their games and the larger conversation of, is there a better way to schedule for Texas? Some other teams in the SEC feel there is so. But let's listen to a quick word from our sponsors here at Texas Sports Unfiltered, here on Open Gym, here 4 to 6. Myself, Patrick Davis, and my brother Matt Galatzan hanging out for you from 4 to 6. Jump on the comments, jump on the text line as well. We're going to try to get to everybody here at 4 to 6 if you want to jump in to the conversation. We'll be right back here talking some Texas football on Open Gym.
The best sports bar in Austin, Texas, USA, America is Cover 3. They've got everything you're looking for in a great sports bar. TVs everywhere, so there's not a bad seat in the house, and they've got the right games on. You're not going to have to ask the bartenders, the waitresses, the waiters for the game that you want to watch. They know the games that you want to watch, and the food. My goodness, that's what separates Cover 3 from the other sports bars out there. An upscale menu with tons of great items. You got to try the Sean Adams prime rib sandwich. They've got the filet mignon. They've got the fish tacos. Of course, all of the sports bar classics like wings and nachos as well. Great burgers, great salads. I'm telling you, something for everyone. Of course, the full bar happy hour prices, the weekend brunch. You got to check them out. Anderson Lane, Round Rock, and San Antonio, and of course, Cover 2, 183 and Lake Creek. It's Cover 3, dining, spirits, sports.
Hi, I'm Dan Covert with my wife Hayden. Welcome to Cover BK.
Our newest location in the gorgeous Hill Country includes Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, and hundreds of pre-owned and certified vehicles for you to choose from. We have 3 service departments that are ready to take care of your car, truck, or SUV with 86 service bays to accommodate any repair and get you in and out quickly. Come visit us today to select the vehicle you've been dreaming about.
Covert, born and raised in Austin.
Shout out to Leaf Landscape Supply, a full service and wholesale and retail plant nursery and landscape supplier here in the ATX. They have 2 terrific locations. Y'all should check both of them out. If you're up north, hit up the one on Pond Springs Road. If you're down south, hit up the one off Monterey Oaks and 290. If you're looking for large quantities of supplies to fulfill any landscaping job, trendy house plants, a collection of specialty plants and rare plants, Leaf Landscape Supplies, your one-stop shop for everything you need. Go to their website at leaflandscapesupply.com so you can check it out before you get there what you want. And when you do get there and you're in the checkout line, let them know your boy Zay Collier put you on, the boys at Texas Sports Unfiltered, and you get 10% off. 10% off, can't beat that at Leaf Landscape Supply.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations.
I got this, Dad. This is Camilla McKay, and my dad can help with any TV or stereo needs you have around your house. Just call him, and he will come to you with advice and a great price. And the guys that work for him are awesome. They can install anything, anywhere. So, like my dad says, just relax and smile. We handle all the work.
So just give us a call at 255-8678 or on the web at avconsultations.com.
All right, back here with Open Gym here on Tech Sports Unfiltered. We're going to get into Kevin Durant talk here in a little bit, but I thought I'd give you a little break from the basketball talk for a minute, even though it is basketball season now. We're in basketball season. But I thought we'd talk some Texas football for a minute. We did get some news. Anwar Richardson reporting the other day, which, by the way, if you do not follow Anwar, you should. He is at Anwar Richardson. He put this out on X, I believe, 2 days ago. According to my sources, Notre Dame's DBs coach Mike Mickens, Pitt assistant head coach, secondary safeties Corey Sanders, and Rutgers cornerback coach Mark Orphy, I believe is how you pronounce that, are the top 3 candidates to replace former Longhorn safeties coach Blake Gideon. That news has come out. We haven't heard much more than that, but those seem to be 3 names that a lot of people are honing in on. There could always be some other candidates. Those seem to be 3 big names coming in. To give you a little background on them, if you want to look at Mike Mickens, one of the things about him that really seems to stick out is he coached at Notre Dame. and they were playing for a national title this season. So he is definitely a big name. He's probably the biggest name of a guy that you would think that's a big jump to pull a guy from Notre Dame. He's had a good track record so far as a DB's coach coming off of that run though this season. Seems like a good fit. Could definitely have the recruiting names because if you're recruiting to Notre Dame, you've already been at the same houses sometimes coming over to Texas. So a big fit there. Corey Sanders, the interesting piece you find out from him, he's another guy coached at Pitt, coached at a big school. But one of the things, he does actually have former head coaching experience too. Did coach for a little bit at a very small school, and the amount of small it was that it closed in 2017 as a school, and then I believe reopened like online in 2021 or something to that effect. But so a very small school he's a head coach at, but has a little bit of different experience. And Sark is a guy that enjoys having guys with a lot of different experience. It's something that he takes a lot of value in. That's why he's friends with a lot of different coaches. Is like getting different viewpoints, and that is something you pull from there. And then the name that probably is the most, makes sense to me in the old school Texas coaching way and kind of the new school is Mark Orphy. He is at the smallest school right now of the ones listed, of the places coming out. But he has worked in the SEC before. He has coached at both South Carolina and at Alabama, and he was like an analyst basically at Alabama. So it wasn't a coach, but he was part of that staff. He understands how those big SEC programs in those games work. And then he's also got going for him. He's from Houston, man. He played at Texas Southern. He is a Texas kid, and connections to Houston are very, very big. Everybody knows that my old buddy Rob Babers, who I used to do the show with, is from H-Town and one of the best DBs in Texas football history. And so if we say Houston has produced some great cornerbacks for the University of Texas, they will continue to produce a lot of great players. That connection in recruiting, he may be the lesser qualified, lesser up the coaching totem pole to say, but when you look at it, that is why you bring him in. And then I'll mention one more thing before I send it over to Matt to get what his opinion on a lot of these things are. But one other thing to note, I found the ages of Mike Mickens and Corey Sanders. I believe one's 39, one's 37. I couldn't find the age for Mark Orphy, but he did graduate from college in 2010, which would put you around late 30s.
My age.
And so with everything put out, I believe all these guys are probably around mid to late 30s. And so if we look at that and say he's probably that this is kind of the age range he's looking at too, of the guys who, he's not going for, a Dwayne Akina. He's not necessarily, it feels like all the guys are somewhat in the same range of experience and someone that can go into some of these players' houses and be similar ages, maybe a little bit younger than the parents when they're recruiting, so that you're not bringing in, just the style and technique of recruiter you're bringing in, what the age of the player when you're talking to the players, I think is all kind of in that level. I thought that was a little bit interesting that all the guys seem like they're roughly in that same age range as well. But let me get your thoughts on that list. And I know we've talked about another name as well that could be in there, but what is your look at that list of names first?
Well, Mickens is the one that jumps out to me as sort of the home run hire, I think, because, he has a track record, right? He just helped Notre Dame get to the national title. They had one of the best defenses in the country. This season, they finished fourth in the nation in pass defense, fifth in interceptions, sixth in yards per attempt, first in opponent's completion percentage, and 23rd in passing touchdowns against. That's pretty good. Granted, they didn't face the day-to-day, schedule that some of these other, big programs face. Notre Dame doesn't play that same kind of schedule, but he's also a pretty dang good recruiter as well. He brought in guys like Dallas Golden and Christian Gray, Mark Zachary IV, Chasten Smith, Jaden Mickey, Micah Bell. So he's got all those things working for him. And he kind of feels like a rising star in the business. He was at Cincinnati, and he had a lot to do with Sauce Gardner. and he's a hell of a player, obviously, in the NFL now. So that's the one that really jumps out to me. Sanders is probably the one to me that is the least exciting, I think, because a lot of that has to do with just Pittsburgh has been atrocious on pass defense
Yeah.
all the time. Obviously, that doesn't all fall on him. I mean, he's just a position coach, but he has a lot to do with the development. He helps develop the game plan, those kinds of things. So that's the one where, and maybe they hire him and he proves me totally wrong. Would be the first time that happened. I can promise you that. But the Orphy thing is incredibly interesting to me because you want to have a guy who can recruit the state of Texas. Houston is an absolute hotbed of talent. You got all these high schools around here, Galveston area, North Shore, Katy, all these different places that have really, really, really athletic and talented players. And if you bring a guy in who is familiar with the area, knows the coaches in the area, can connect with those players, I think that would be absolutely huge. And even at Rutgers in 2000, I think it was 2020, maybe. Well, at one point when Orphy was there, they ranked top 10 in the country in pass defense, which at Rutgers is pretty dang good. So he's a guy that would sort of fit the Blake Guinean mold to me in a little bit, because Guinean didn't have a whole, ton of experience behind him when he came in. He was kind of a rising name in the industry. So Orphy kind of fits that mold for me. But if I'm Steve Sarkisian and I'm looking to make this decision tomorrow, I think Mickens is the one that I call first, just because of his track record and his experience in big time environments and big time programs. I do like that Orphy has the Alabama thing on his resume and his South Carolina thing on his resume, but I would go Mickens, then Orphy, then Sanders in that scenario.
Yeah, and I would too. It wouldn't surprise me too if there's been conversations, because it feels like Mickens is kind of that, as you said, the home run hire of, all right, well, this is kind of a no-brainer. If this guy is available, he's willing to come, then let's go get him. But there could be conversations of, hey, we kind of talked to his agent and his manager, and they're talking back to Notre Dame, and maybe he gets another title put on at Notre Dame, and this is more of a play for him to stay. He'd be fine staying where he's at, and doesn't want to make the move. That's believable too. And so that'll be something that comes over time of, if we see all of a sudden next year on his chart that he's listed at he's moved up from associate head coach or whatever else you want to put on there for his name, that will go, okay, well, Texas offered him, or at least he made Notre Dame believe that Texas offered him. I know you've mentioned this before, another name we got thrown out on the text line as well, but Michael Huff is another name that has been thrown around and levied around a little bit. He's not in that tweet, but at the same part, this could all be happening. There could be other names on that list. So Michael Huff is another interesting name that falls again in the Blake Gideon world of bringing somebody new in, but he has strong ties in the NFL with the career that he was able to have. We know that he has a relationship with the players, has been around practice a lot. So he would be an interesting one. I mean, it is the question of, are you willing to make this your life? And those may be conversations that are happening behind closed doors too, where he's happy with, being a part of the program without living the program, and, sleeping 6 or 4 less hours a night and constantly being on a plane, and, all those pieces that come with recruiting and being a football coach at that level. He's an interesting name though, for sure.
Yeah. I would love the idea of potentially making Terry Joseph the main defensive backs coach, and then bringing in Michael Huff under him, at least for a little bit. When you bring a player or a former player into your program who has had success, who has won awards, who has the respect of the entire program and all the players and all those different things, it can be a real benefit. There's a lot of things to like about that. It's obviously the change and becoming a full-time coach is a very difficult one to want to undertake if you've never done it before. a lot of these guys have been living that life already, and they know what it takes and all the different little things that come with it. And I'm sure Huff is familiar with all that, but it's different to be familiar with it and then go into doing it full time, obviously. So I think that would be a very interesting and intriguing move for them to make. I feel like he, just with his personality and all the things that he has on his resume, I feel like he would be a tremendous recruiter if he could commit himself to doing that. So that's something that I've kind of kept in the back of my mind. Well, yeah, maybe they'll surprise some people and we'll do something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, those are guys like Michael Huff. When you see as much as he was around, we know the Jade Barron wearing the number this year and that relationship. We know that there's pieces in it that I think if he wants to take it on, but it is that making sure he understands what you're jumping on to do. And if you want to be really successful, and what do you want out of it? Do you want to be a coach that stays in Texas for the next 3 or 4 years and be a part of it? Or is this something where you're going to, want to follow in Blake Gideon's footsteps and use this as a jumping ground? And then you think you'll be a head coach one day. What are your goals in life in doing this? Every player after they leave the game has to go through those steps of trying to figure out where you want to be. It's way different than it used to be because now they're all millionaires walking out of the game versus when, several years back, guys got out and they were like, I need a job. I do not have enough money to retire on. There's something to be said about trying to make sure you get to that point and you understand where you're going to be. I do think it's a very interesting name. And I think it's also adds in to, we talk about, I don't want to go too far back into Texas basketball, but Trey Johnson, one of the reasons he said he came to Texas was because of the opportunities outside of the game and not necessarily it's still football, but because of the connections you can make and Texas showing, hey, not only can we put you in the NFL and not only can you do all these things, that once your career is done, we do take care of our players. And if you want to come back and be a part of this, then maybe you can go back into coaching with us as well. I think all those pieces kind of grow into a type of world that help you recruiting, help you put together these teams. And so it'll be an interesting world to see if they do go ahead. And even if, they may if you bring in a Mickens, you may still find a place for Huff somewhere to kind of get him introed into it. And I think I'll throw in this last point that, and there is this other world of with Huff or, maybe you look at some other names that are on these lists and you I even go maybe and Mark Orphy falls into this a little bit of, are you at a different place than you were when you brought in Blake Gideon? Are you at a different place that Sark was setting a culture and Sark was understood it was going to take a little bit to build and he could build coaches with it. And now you're in 100% win now mode. I'm not building coaches. Or do you say, I always have to keep building coaches because they're going to keep going out the door? I have to understand if I have a successful program, attrition is there. So I think there's two sides of it and seeing how he feels about, is he going to bring in somebody? We know the age range, so it's not he's bringing in old school, but it's the same part. Does he want to bring in someone with a couple more skins on the wall?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Patrick. So the double-edged sword that you face when you're a program like Texas who's competing for national championships every year is that, we saw it already, Tashard Choice, Blake Gideon. Your top assistants are going to be going out the door eventually. There's no way that Tashard Choice is going to stay a running backs coach for the next 15 years in Austin. He's going to have too many opportunities to make money. Blake Gideon was the same way. So when you're Texas, you kind of have to play both sides a little bit. You can't just necessarily, try and go out and get all these guys that would kind of be making a lateral move. Maybe you can. You're Texas. You can pretty much do whatever you want in terms of hiring, but I think that you kind of have to find ways to develop these guys.
Yeah.
Maybe that the fact that Texas is in win now mode and they're going to be a favorite for the national championship next year and all those kinds of things, maybe that is reason enough to not look at Michael Huff or somebody like that just yet. I still think you can make the case for Orphy in that situation.
Yeah, because
Huffs
Huffs is going to have that too. I bet, or if he's got a few more skins on the wall than Huffs, even. Yeah,
right. I mean, Huff's never really coached before, to my knowledge. I mean, I haven't looked at his complete resume, obviously, but you want a guy that has some coaching experience if you're going to be competing for a national championship. So, it'll be interesting to see which direction they go. I think that the fact that they are win now and the fact that they are competing for a national championship really points me to Mickens more than anybody else. So he's got to be the first guy you look at in that situation.
I agree. All right, let's move on real quick. Remember, text line's open 512-222-9328. And you can hit us up on the chats as well. Open Gym here with myself, Patrick Davis, and Matt Galatzan here on Texas Sports Unfiltered, here every day, 4 to 6 p.m. in that new lineup. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and everybody's had kind words for me joining on that has listened to me before. I appreciate you, and all the kind words for Matt as well. We appreciate that. Let's get into a little other story that came out today. It's not a huge story. It makes sense. I like the move, but it does bring it to the bigger point of Sark has a different mindset than a lot of other SEC coaches. That Texas today did announce that they moved their game with Sam Houston coming up next season in football. It was originally going to be on September 27th. It is now on September 20th. That is a problem where you probably just had to pay Sam Houston a little bit more money to make their schedule work with your schedule. Pay out whoever other schools and whatever else to move it, but make it to where this works out for you. What that ends up doing is now puts you with your first 4 non-conference games with Ohio State, San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston, then a bye week before you get into SEC play. Then you'll play at Florida, the Oklahoma game, Red River rivalry, the Red River shootout, the State Fair street fight, as our man Craig Way likes to say. It was say at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, at Vanderbilt. So you go 5 games right there. And then before you hit this hard part at the end of your season, you get one more bye week in there. And then you end up at Georgia, Arkansas, A&M. So those last 3 games that are going to be really tough. You have a Georgia team that, man, this is not a rivalry because you have to beat them once to make it a rivalry. So you'd like to make it some next year and show them at Georgia. But they played them twice, and it did not go well for Texas either time. It went better the second time, much better the second time, but it still didn't end up going the right way. But to have that bye week there, the interesting part of this is, and Sark has talked about this before. I don't know if he talked about it today, but he talked about this before. You move and you get that bye week. A lot of teams to have more time at the beginning of the season and to kind of make sure that their schedule is, they like to, maybe move up conference play or move things around to move one game up and then stick a non-conference game later in the season and have that let-up game and have that piece. Sark has talked before where he says, I've been on teams before and we did that and it sucked. It sucked because you have your team and you're really trying to keep them geared up all season and you're trying to keep them amped up and never let it slip. Don't go down for anybody. Don't deal like you have to go be at 100% all season. And then you take a team where you don't have to be. You could be 50% and beat them. And you stick that in the middle, and then the next week you got to go out and try and get them amped up again. But it's just hard to do. And so for Sark, he has said, I would prefer to keep it where my guys, as soon as we hit conference play, we are pedal to the metal. It is go time. And this is the plan. We are planning to go through this. We are planning to play in an SEC championship game. We are planning to win that. And then we're planning to go to the playoffs. Hopefully we'll get a bye week there. But we're going to go and we're expecting to play all the way up until the championship. That's our plan. That's what our goal is. And when you have that piece in the middle, it becomes more difficult. But there is 2 schools of thought on this. And a lot of teams prefer to have that game late. They prefer to have a week where the staff can take back a little bit and do recruiting later in the week. And you're playing it as a home game. So you're not traveling at that point. You get to say, we're going to be here, but we're going to let all these kids come onto campus and we can kind of, as coaches, maybe let off a little bit and be with these players and, bring the recruits in and make this a little bit of a different theory for what we want to look. Sark does not think that way. Matt, where do you sit on the world of, and I'll just say this first off too, I believe if you're doing that, you're trying to put a conference game somewhere else. You do get another bye later in the season as well. If Texas were to do it, it would be crazy because it would just be a gauntlet, and you would stick it between Vanderbilt and Georgia, and that's crazy. There's no reason to stick anything. You want a bye week at that point. But you would say adding a bye week there, and then maybe instead of Mississippi State, that game moves or something like that, and you put that in there, and Mississippi State becomes a week earlier. But what's your thoughts on the planning of a schedule like that?
So obviously, that I went to Ole Miss, and I'm an Ole Miss fan. So I've followed the career of Hugh Freeze, and I've followed the SEC for a long time and all those things. There's a lot of situations where if you place that game late in the season, it can come up and bite you.
Yeah.
And you definitely don't want to go into a game like that and think that you're just going to, run the gauntlet and dominate these teams when you're not playing at your best. And then all of a sudden you get snake bit. So that's one part of it for me. I think that if Texas were to eventually start putting a non-conference game later in the season, it would have to be something interesting that keeps the players involved. So like maybe rekindling the stuff with Texas Tech. I know that that's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but like putting Texas Tech somewhere towards the end of the season, like a Florida State kind of a deal or whatever.
Yeah.
Or South Carolina, Clemson. That would be interesting to me. But outside of that, I think you keep the bye week, because especially with the way that their schedule is formatted this year, you really want to have a bye week before Georgia. You want to make sure you're as healthy as humanly possible. You want your guys rested. You want them focused. You want 2 weeks to game plan for a team like that. Maybe every year with the way the schedule works out, it's not necessarily that way. But, I think what they did here was extremely smart, because now you get the bye week ahead of Florida, which is going to be a very tough place to travel and play in. And then you get the gauntlet with Oklahoma, and then it goes on from there. But, I sort of side with Sark on this scenario here. It's and another thing with those other non-conference games. I mean, how much would you hate if they schedule, UTEP or Louisiana Monroe or something like that late in the season, and Arch Manning comes out and twists an ankle in a game that you shouldn't be playing in the first place.
But I mean, because those are, and they can happen at any point. But yeah, I think the big problem is, hey, we're all in the mindset that we're playing great. I think the big problem is you're undefeated. You play Rice, week 10 or whatever it is, when you play Rice at this point, and you're undefeated. This is a walk in the park for you, no problem. And now you're in the fourth quarter, running the ball for the 30th time. You don't want to put your running back in that situation, and it just goes wrong. Maybe Arch throws a pick or 2 picks in that game because he's just not worried about, like, whatever can happen psychologically to throw you off, that you were just in a barn burner with Rice, and then you got to go play a Georgia or somebody like that. And you thought, man, we can go in and play a tough game. And, maybe you could say we could look at film or whatever else, but you can't, because the level of competition and the size of the players and all those, they just beat you in a way that another team's not going to beat you, or at least push you in a way. And I think that those kind of psychological ways of, as Mark says, letting off, but then having to turn it on in the middle of a game and having to figure all that part out. It feels like I understand the concept, and we feel it can be kind of an extra buy for us. I understand the concept of it's a way to recruit a game day without it being a game day. Like that Texas Georgia game this year, with the amount of recruits and everything, and you're trying to get ready for a game, but you also know your future is on the line getting these recruits. So it just becomes so much. It's so hard to avoid it. The noise is so big around it that I can understand benefits of putting it in there, but I think the way they're able to do it this year, to have it, you start off with Ohio State, you put in that big game. A lot of these coaches that do that other game late don't even play a big game in non-con, so they're not even throwing in the Ohio State. But you get through those, you have your 3 games. Sark refers to it a lot as preseason, and then you treat it like an NFL schedule from that point on. And you don't say, we're an NFL schedule, except for that one team. Then we play a CFL team in week 14. We'll beat the crap out of them, and then we'll come back and play. I think he treats it much more like that. I appreciate that in today's game, playing it like that. And there are just too many things. Injury is, because you can hurt yourself in practice. We see that enough too. But in a game, I mean, you talk about getting suspended, a targeting call, and how dumb the targeting call is, where it's like, well, you can't get a targeting call in practice. You get hurt, but you can't get a safety thrown out for a first half against a Georgia or an Alabama or a really big school that you'd be playing the week after. So there's just a lot of reasons to not schedule it. I get it. I can understand there's reasons why, but I'd say I appreciate it. I like that they were able to move this game. When people talk about the money and power Texas has, things like moving this Sam Houston game, those are some of the pieces that are kind of behind the scenes of building these games up that people may not see the same way. That's how you spend your money. Is we got to pay off some of these schools to make them shift their schedule, not that far out from the season at this point, in the same calendar year as this season. We need to shift some things around. But that's how you spend your money. And, maybe that's why it took a while. They had to get through the budgeting of a year and go, hey, we need to put that budgeting to, we know we'll move the game, but it's going to cost us $100,000, and we can't put that on this year's books. We got to put it on next year's. So maybe that's why it didn't happen earlier. I don't know. That's just a theory, but yeah, there's certain points. It's a really great thing to be able to get that bye week, because you are going down to the Swamp at Florida that next week. And as much as Florida has been down, they're not going to be, I think they'll be a little bit better next season. It will be at the Swamp. It'll be at the beginning. This is going to be the second big challenge Arch Manning will face. He'll play Ohio State early in the season. That will, of course, be a big challenge. But which, by the way, this is Texas playing the national champion back-to-back years at the beginning of the season, which is, I mean, the CDC, this is, let me throw this into another factor of why some coaches may not want to come to Texas as a basketball coach. CDC is going to schedule hard games. I know Tom Herman hated it. I know Chris Beard hated it. There's coaches that do not want to schedule hard games early. They don't want to lose. They want to win everything early and don't even take a chance of it. Tom Herman hated Big 12, that they had to play that many games in conference. It's like, you're setting me back a win. And it wasn't about, and that's one of the reasons why he's not a head coach in college basketball, in football anymore. But I'm just saying, that's another piece. Texas played UConn at home this year. You're playing a defending national champion, UConn. Some coaches may not want to do that. And at Texas, because Texas is a brand, they want to make that money on TV and everything else, that you're going to play in some big games. Texas playing Ohio State, Arch Manning's going to deal with that. But you say that, Arch Manning then plays San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston. Those are games where he's not necessarily going to get tested the same way before you head down to the Swamp and have to play in a hostile town. And I'll tell you, it'll be more hostile in Florida than it will be at Ohio State, because Ohio State will have a little bit of, hangover still from a championship. So I think you'll get a more hostile environment when you go to Florida for Arch. It'll be big for him to get a bye week before that and get ready for it. So I do love the move for Texas, getting it done. It doesn't seem like it's a ton, but in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about the abuse these players are going through in their bodies throughout a year now, how much longer they are, just that little bit of scheduling could be huge. Just that extra rest and relax, or rest and recovery before you get into that Florida game, the SEC schedule. That's just brutal.
Yeah. So the other thing about the Florida game too, we saw what they did against Ole Miss last year. They're not going away. They've got a really talented quarterback. I think that they're going to be really ready to play. That's going to be, so far, that will be the best matchup quarterback to quarterback that Arch Manning will have faced in his career. So having that extra bye week to help your defense prepare for a guy like DJ Lagway is going to be huge. And there's a lot of just little things about this that I just love the idea for Texas. And here's the other thing about CDC. personally, like, I understand the idea of not liking scheduling the games early, like in Ohio State, like in Michigan, like in Alabama. I think that if you're Texas and you're trying to establish yourself as a program that's one of the dominant forces in college football, you have to have these games on your schedule. One, to prove that you're up there with the best of the best. You beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You beat Michigan. Whatever anybody wants to say about Michigan this year, you beat Michigan in one of the toughest environments in college football. And you have that game also later on your resume when college football playoff comes around, where it's like, okay, strength of schedule, it matters. So they're gonna play these games against Ohio State. They're gonna play these games against Michigan and Alabama and whoever it is down the line. And it's gonna be really good for your seeding, for your recruiting, for all of those different things. And if your schedule and your resume just feels so much different if you replace Ohio State with like Sacramento State or
I just always put Rice in there, right? Because Rice is a decent school, and it's in the Kennedy speech, so it always gets thrown in. Why does Rice play Texas?
Yeah, and
I'm firmly on the you should play hard games, you should get ready for it. I get sometimes it doesn't go your way. At the same part, you need that experience. I'm fully on board for it. But I know a lot of coaches, it's a business to them. And the business is, I need to win as many games as possible every year. And if I win enough games, I'll win a championship, but I would need to win a lot of games every year. And it's not thought of as they have a different mindset of, I'm going to try and win a championship, but I also need to win a lot of games. And those are somewhat different worlds. And me winning games is more important. So don't schedule me a loss. Don't give me one more easy win. Give me two more easy wins. And then when I go to the committee, I'm a salesman. I'll go up to that committee and tell them, well, you have to let me in. I'm a 10-win team. We didn't play anybody. It doesn't matter. I'm a 10-win team.
Right. So the other thing for me too is, in defense of playing the hard games, for Sark especially, it's a barometer for what your team is.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get a gauge on what you do well and what your weaknesses are and all those different things when you're playing UTEP and San Jose State and Sam Houston State. If you go up against Ohio State, you know what you need to fix. Granted, it is week one and teams change throughout the year. We saw it with a lot of different teams, but if you can go into Ohio State and you can get a good read on your team and know what you have to fix and know what you need to improve and all those things, it's going to play dividends down the road in November and December and all those kinds of things.
No, I agree with you 100%. I'll tell you what, we'll talk more about this and more about the schedule, I'm sure, a lot down the road here on Open Gym. But why don't we play a few more words from our sponsor so we can wrap up the show in the last 30 minutes. We're going to get into the talk about Ohio State bringing in a new defensive coach. We talk about who Texas may bring in. They brought in a new coach. But I also want to get into Kevin Durant and talk about Kevin Durant's place in NBA history. He is a very polarizing figure for Longhorn fans. Most of us are on the positive side. Some people are not. But he hit another milestone and is in a conversation that's interesting to me, and I want to get Matt's take on it as well as all of you guys. Text line's open 512-222-9328, and you can join us in the chat here on YouTube, Twitch, X, and Facebook. I believe that's where we're at on all of those. But we're going to play a quick word from our sponsors. We'll be right back to talk more here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Hayden Covert. Welcome to Covert Buick GMC of Bee Cave, your home in the Hill Country for new and pre-owned Buick and GMC vehicles. With beautiful inventory arriving daily, including the GMC Yukon, Sierra 1500, and Buick Enclave, you'll be certain to find the perfect vehicle at an incredible deal. Our service department is also open for all your vehicle maintenance needs. Visit us today for a test drive. Covert, born and raised in Austin. We are professional grade.
Altstadt Beer, the best beer that you can find all throughout the great state of Texas. Y'all know I've been a fan of Altstadt for years now, and if you try it, I think you will be too. If you've already tried it, you know exactly what I am talking about. Altstadt is brewed locally in Fredericksburg, but available all over the state of Texas. So if you're tuned in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, it does not matter. You can find Altstadt at a local grocery store or liquor store. They've got a bunch of different brews, something for every beer drinker out there. The Lager, the Kolsch, those are their two flagship beers, both award winners. They are fantastic. The Altstadt Light sacrifices on calories but does not sacrifice on the taste. They've got great pills, tons of great seasonals as well. I'm telling you, one sip and you won't go back to the other beers you've been drinking in the past. It is the official beer of BK. It should be the official beer of you as well. It's Altstadt Beer. No impurities, no regrets.
Hi, this is Tom McKay with Audiovisual Consultations. Today's home electronics can be a bit daunting. My company has spent the last 36 years making sure they are not. For those of you who have not experienced our services yet, we'd like to invite you to give us a try for all your home electronics needs. We carry all the major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And we come to you. There's no need to leave your home to find great pricing and incomparable service. No traffic, inexperienced sales geeks, or pushy showroom tactics. We believe in having some fun and dreaming big. Do you have a dream for your home entertainment? Let us know. We can make it come true. And we are always there to help after the job is done. We cultivate clients for a lifetime by treating everyone like their family. No, not those family members. I'm talking about the ones you actually like. So relax, hug your kids, make love to your wife, and smile. Then, when you have a moment, give us a call at 255-8678. That's 512-255-8678. Or online at avconsultations.com.
All right, jumping back here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Open Gym here with myself, Patrick Davis, and Matt Galatzan. I want to talk a little bit about a milestone for Kevin Durant. And I'm going to ask you guys, so if you guys want to jump into the conversation, feel free to jump in. Shout out to the person on the text line. I don't have your name on here, but it says, Pat, so happy to have you back. Any chance we get Babers too? Appreciate you having me back. I cannot speak for Rod Babers. I try to reach out to him every once in a while, talk every once in a while. Right now, he can't be on here, but who knows? Who knows what the future holds for all those guys? Always wish the best for Rod, though. He is the best in the business. Huge fan of him, and is a great. He's been a friend too. So, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying the kind words. Let's talk a little bit about Kevin Durant, a very polarizing figure in the sports world. He last night got into rarefied air. He was already pretty much in rarefied air, but he did reach the 30,000 point mark in the NBA. He is now at 30,008 points. That is 8th all time. He was already 8th all time, but now he is in the 30,000. There's only 8 players who have ever done that. Is Kevin Durant, Wilt Chamberlain, Dirk Nowitzki, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Karl Malone, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and LeBron James. Those are your players who have done it, who have gotten there. It is interesting. I want to throw out into this list before we do anything else. There's 8 players on this list. And just for everybody who gets mad that players move around too much, there's one player who played his entire career on one team. One. Just
my guy.
Just Dirk's the only one. And technically, Dirk was not drafted by that team, but that is somewhat of just a note. It was always going to be there. The Mavs wanted him. He was drafted technically, but the rules are it's dumb. But yes, but there's one guy. Everyone else did end up playing on another team on that list. Everyone who's up on that list. It's just an interesting thing that nobody at the top really likes to stay in there. Tim Duncan also only one team. He's 17th, 26,496 points, but that is far he goes down. He's 17th on that list. But Kevin Durant going into that world, this is Kevin Durant. We know he's entering a different part of his career now. He's 36 years old. It's funny because coming out of Texas, one of those pieces of a guy like him that's a little bit skinnier, or a lot skinnier, the Slim Reaper, as they would call him. A lot of times you would hear people criticizing, well, he's not going to be able to last in the NBA. He will be broken down and unable to play because he is too skinny, and he is still playing at a very high level at 36 years old. So when we look at him, I mean, he is just his accomplishments are insane. He's a two-time NBA champion, a two-time finals MVP. He was a MVP, 15-time All-Star. Also, I believe is 7 people, I think, have done that in their career of 15-time All-Stars. He's won the MVP of the All-Star game twice, 6-time All-NBA first team, 5-time All-NBA second team. He's been a scoring champion 4 times, and the awards keep going on and on for what Kevin Durant has done. But he does fall because of one move, because he went to Golden State. The hate began that he was part of that Oklahoma City team that everybody thought big things of. They were never quite able to get over the hump, but with Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Serge Ibaka, and then Kendrick Perkins, I believe, came out recently and said that he was the leader of the team. He dropping some dumb Kendrick Perkins stuff that he was like, no, y'all don't get, it wasn't about the best player. I was the leader. And you just want to retort to Kendrick Perkins on that one. So you were the leader who never won a title with that team and then broke up one of the greatest assemblies of talent. That's how you led this team? That everyone wanted to get out so quickly that James Harden was like, peace out. We're going to take you off, which that trade at the time that seemed bad then for Kevin Martin and some other pieces for the Rockets. That trade didn't seem right at the time, and wow, it turned out to be an exponentially terrible trade. But Kevin Martin at the time was okay. But that was I just remember that trade. You have that, and then everybody wants it to happen, and it's when they raise the CBA and the salary cap jumps so much that basically you could sign a max deal anywhere in the NBA. Most of these teams were not at that point. The Warriors were at a point where you could bring in a max deal. He goes and joins the super team that's already in Golden State and wins 2 titles there with Golden State. People start to turn on him. Then he goes to Brooklyn and brings in Kyrie Irving, and then they get James Harden over there. Now everybody hates them in Brooklyn now, and it never works. And so he gets even more, put down and more hate thrown on him in the fact that he tried to build a team and it didn't work. He does it in Phoenix, demands a trade out of that, signs a new deal, then demands a trade. And then this is now an experiment that is wildly failed for Phoenix, that they're, just not able to get it done. The Bradley Beal piece was a way misfire that, I think we all knew was going to be a misfire. I think everybody could sat there and said, it's the Wizards. Those stats are probably inflated. I know you're hoping that he's going to show up and be a better player, but I don't know, doesn't feel like he's going to be. So maybe you shouldn't make this massive trade. All those pieces coming together, give him a weird place in NBA history, because statistically, he's probably a top 10 player all time right now. Statistically.
Absolutely.
But because of how he won his 2 titles, because of the demanding trades, because of just the general era about him and the thought about him, some people are going to say he is just a scorer and he's not fit in that top 10 list. I want to know, and this is for everybody too, so throw in where you rank Kevin Durant all-time NBA player. Where do you put Kevin Durant, and is he in your top 10? Is he in yours, Matt?
No, he's not. He's top 20 probably, maybe top 15 if I'm being generous. The thing about a lot of the players that you listed before who are on that scoring list, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Karl Malone. Well, maybe not Karl Malone because he didn't win a championship, but all these other guys on that list I already have above Kevin Durant, because the vast majority of them were the centerpiece of a championship team. Kevin Durant has never been, I mean, he's won championships, but he entered the situation with Golden State where they were already winning championships, and they just overpowered everybody else. He never drove a team to a championship. And I think if you're going to be considered a top 10 player of all time, you have to be in that mold. I don't consider Karl Malone necessarily a top 10 player. He's fringe, But with all those guys, a lot of those guys on the list, they're already on there. And then you have to add names like Magic Johnson. You have to add names like Larry Bird.
So let me go through. We're gonna go down a list, and I want you to tell me better or worse. Where do you rank Kevin Durant above or below these people? And so I'm just gonna go through a list from 2012 or 2022. The Athletic put out of the ranking the 75 best players in NBA history. So it's a couple years off, but not that bad. But let's go through their list and just say better or worse. We'll say just say the player's name that you think is better, Durant or MJ. Who would you take? Michael Jordan.
MJ.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting off. It's easy to start. LeBron.
Yeah. LeBron.
Kareem. Bill Russell. Magic Johnson. Wilt Chamberlain. Larry Bird. Shaquille O'Neal. Tim Duncan.
I love Timmy. Give me Timmy all day.
Kobe.
I think Kobe's top 3. So,
all right. Hakeem Olajuwon.
Hakeem the Dream, baby.
Oscar Robertson. This is where it gets a little tough because I've never got to see Oscar play.
I never got to see Oscar play either. Obviously, I don't even know Oscar's resume off the top of my head, but that's a tough one. I'll probably go Oscar Robertson.
So on this list from 2022, they have Kevin Durant at 13. So they have all those players listed above him as well. But I'll keep going down. We'll see if we get some other names on there. Jerry West. Steph Curry.
He's top 10.
Karl Malone.
I'll go KD above Karl Malone, but I think there's going to be other players that you list after this that I'm going to put above.
I'm going to keep going
KD,
down. I'll go down to like the list 20. I'll get down to 20. We'll go there. Sure. But I get that. And because look, if we're just saying those go back to back of a guy who's made it to finals, a guy who's been on teams that have pushed and done very well and statistically played for a long time and done a lot of things, then he's just better than Karl Malone in that aspect. So a lot of things that Karl Malone was great at, he's just done slightly better. So yeah, I think he's on that one. Kevin Garnett.
KD.
Moses Malone.
KD.
Dr. J. David Robinson.
David Robinson's one of my favorite players of all time, so I'm kind of biased, but I'll go David Robinson.
All right, I'll throw in number 21 for you, Dirk Nowitzki.
Dirk 100% is better than KD. I will die on that hill. I could make the argument that Dirk Nowitzki is fringe top 10, but
I mean he's not. He's fringe 15, but but I get because there's just guys like I'll put Larry Bird's not my top 10, and it's simply in the world that he didn't play long enough. And so I can't put him in, like you can say in his best year if we say who had their best year in the place. But I'm going to put KD above a Larry Bird because Larry Bird couldn't do it for that long. Now, if he played as long as KD, then yeah, he's probably better. But KD, this is what you're missing. He's 36. He could still end up on another team and win another championship. He could still be that guy to go in because he still scores at an unbelievable level. He still moves pretty well for a guy who's probably 7'1". If you look at what standing with other tall players. So he's 6'11" to 7'1". You have all these pieces of what Kevin Durant can do. I'm curious to see where the next 3 to 4 years of his career go. I don't feel like he's going to fade off or just walk away from the game at any point. It feels like he lives and breathes basketball. So I don't know if he's going to be a guy who ever willingly steps away before the game kind of gets past him. The injuries take too much of a toll, and he's going to start missing 50 games a year every year. And they go, man, no one wants to bring you in because you're too important, but you also can't play. You just can't stay on the court anymore. But that could be another 2, 3, 4 years, pushing him up that list, getting up to 6, 5. I mean, let's see how far he is behind some of these other players. He's only about 1,000, 1,500 points behind Wilt Chamberlain. Not that far, 1,500 points behind Dirk Nowitzki. That gets you up to 6. If he can put up another 2,500 points in his career, he passes Michael Jordan. So, I mean, there's worlds where he lives in where he's a top 5 scorer of all time. And does that get him into the world of top 10 all time? I think if he wins another championship, and I know he won't be the centerpiece, I know he'll never be that. But again, when we talk about the centerpiece and he had to go win on a team that was already there. All right, well, then let's wipe off every Laker and Celtic. They're all out because they all were built with teams of 17 great players on them. All those so Bill Russell and Larry Bird and Magic and Kareem and yeah, they're cheating. They cheated to get there because they had all the best players in a time before you could do that. And I know they're not cheating, but if we're going to go by the same metric that you're not allowed to just go to a good team, Wilt demanded a trade there. Kareem demanded a trade there. I mean, Kobe didn't demand a trade to the Lakers for that case, but he did demand a trade out of Charlotte. Like, there is all these pieces that all these guys kind of did similar things. And you're talking about teams that were built. And yes, there's a guy, but there's 4 other guys on this team. And Kevin Durant was arguably, in those 2 years with the Warriors, the best player half of the games. Now, Steph Curry is still going to be Steph Curry and do amazing things. But Steph Curry, you see now one of the problems with the Warriors in bringing in young talent is that entire offense is built around Steph Curry. And you get players now, we talked about it with Texas basketball earlier. These guys are coming in and they're the best players from their college, and they come into Golden State and they go, all right, so we need you to play extremely hardcore defense. And then you set screens for Steph on the other end. And if the ball gets kicked out to you, you can shoot it. But for the most part, we need you to set screens for Steph. He's going to run. He's just going to run around the court, and you set screens for him. And for Kevin Durant to be able to thrive in that world and walk into somebody else's world and then thrive in it, I think there is credit that he's somewhat due. I think he'll get it eventually, but it's going to take 20 years. It's going to be 20 years after he retires. People will talk about, you don't remember how great Kevin Durant was. And so I'm saying now for people to appreciate when you still get to watch KD go on the court, I believe he'll be here soon, right? He'll be here for the Moody Center games. I believe Phoenix is in that. So we'll see Kevin Durant here in Austin pretty soon. But yeah, if you want to throw into, if you've got any piece of where you think Kevin Durant ranks all time, it was hard because I looked at this earlier and I saw people talking about him being top 10. I can't put him in my top 10 just because the impact on the game as a whole, I don't know if he had it the same as some of these other players, but it's hard. I mean, he's a more skilled player than Kareem or Wilt or Shaq, but because those guys were so big and they changed the game, they get in that list ahead of him because they changed the game. It's just a weird way to look at it. Either way, congrats. I mean, it's like looking at the Texas world of saying you always have to figure out the way to say Kevin Durant is the best player who's ever played at Texas, and TJ Ford played the best of any player at Texas. And that weird line, when people ask you who's the greatest Longhorn basketball player, and you're like, well, it's TJ Ford because what he did at Texas makes him the greatest Texas basketball player. But if you're just talking about the greatest player to ever play at Texas, it's Kevin Durant. So it's all that weird dichotomy of terms, trying to figure out where Kevin Durant lands on this list, because his game is just kind of unique to him. Maybe we'll get it more now. Maybe Wemby wants to push a little bit, but it's a kind of a unique game and a unique story.
Yeah. So I think you do make a very good point about those Laker and Celtics teams. I would argue that despite those teams being so stacked, Magic changed the game. Larry changed the game. So that metric that you were talking about, they have done more than Kevin Durant outside of just the titles and all those. I
don't think Larry changed the game. I think Larry was just the game for 8 years. Like, I don't, because no one ever did what he did again. There's not another Larry Bird.
I mean, there's seasons where, and people are going to think I'm crazy, but come after me in the comments if you want to. There are years where I would take, in the best year of their career, I would take Larry Bird over LeBron James.
Oh, no, I get that. I understand
that. I don't think that the reason that I would rank somebody like, say, Dirk Nowitzki over Kevin Durant, maybe he doesn't have the same skill set. Maybe, he's not as athletic, or he doesn't play the same kind of defense. But the thing that he accomplished in the year that he won the championship, he won the hardest championship that anybody has ever won, arguably. He had to go through a very good Portland team with LaMarcus Aldridge and Brandon Roy. He beat KD, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook.
Yep.
He swept Kobe and the Lakers, and then he beat the big three in Miami. That is something that I don't think, and he was the guy. There was no other stars in that team. They had good players, but it was just the right team, and he was the leader. I don't think that there's ever going to be another player that does
Jason
that.
Kidd, right?
At 40.
I gave it Jason Kidd.
It's 40-year-old Jason Kidd, and it's Tyson Chandler, and they were supposed to have Caron Butler. Caron Butler was supposed to be the second best player on that team, and he missed the majority of the end of that, like the second half of that season. So, look, I'm not trying to shade Kevin Durant. I think he's a tremendous player. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer and all of those things. I just think that once you get to a point where you're seen as the player who can only ride the coattails of others to a championship, it's very hard to shake that narrative. And maybe he can do it. He's good enough to do it. He's one of the top 5 players in the league right now, arguably. I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to make that argument, but he's a top 10 player for sure. I just don't know that he has the skins on the wall to make an argument to be a top 10 player unless he does something crazy over the twilight years of his career, because I don't think he's going to be playing at the same level he's playing now next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now.
It depends. It depends on what situation he can find himself in. If he's still in Phoenix having to play all these minutes and do everything, then no. But if he ends up on a team where he can go in and fill the role, and I know he said he didn't want to go back to Golden State, which would lead you to believe that he has issues with how he was used and what what the response was when he left as well. But no, it'll be interesting to see how he ends out his career. He's 36. It could be wrapping up at some point. He does have a lot of injuries in the injury history. He does miss some time, but I'll be curious to see where he goes with that. If he solidifies himself in that top 10 with another championship somewhere, or, another finals MVP or something like that, where it's just like, okay, this guy he plays great when it matters the most, and he can just be that guy, but that'll come up. Before we get out of here, we got about 10 minutes left here on the day here at Texas Sports Unfiltered. Why don't we mention, and I want to get your opinion on this, about the hiring of Ohio State, that they have brought in a new defensive coordinator. They've already brought in Brian Hartline, which they promoted to be their offensive coordinator. You have attrition. This is great teams, and teams that win like that, you're going to have attrition. Guys are going to walk away. They come there to get a better job and move on, which is somewhat why we talked about with the Longhorns and who they're hiring. The thought of, don't hire the next great coach because they're going to be there for a year, maybe 2. And if you can get somebody who's going to take a progress of 2 then you're not having to hire every single season because you're constantly building these guys up. They go for a guy, though, that had a very great reputation up until, say, about 2017. And then it went downhill very, very quickly. His reputation, he falls into the McCown camp and other ones that it felt like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick protected these guys. Matt Patricia ends up as the new defensive coordinator for Ohio State. That is an interesting hire. It may not be bad. It is interesting, though, because we know Matt Patricia basically came up. He was started with the Patriots as an assistant offensive line coach in 2004. And then ended up as a defensive coordinator through 2017. He gets a head coaching job for the Lions out of that. That goes disastrously. He gets fired from there in 2020, goes back to the Patriots for a couple years, and then the Eagles bring him out, and they have that disastrous season last year with now you can tell how good that team was because they just won a Super Bowl. And Matt Patricia was the one that was apparently in meetings telling people the way things were supposed to be going, and it was just god awful there. So is this a hiring that is going to Ryan Day will be able to keep in line and get the best out of Matt Patricia? Or is this him just going in and maybe for Texas, this is a great thing. Maybe for Texas, great hire. This defense is going to be a dumpster fire by week 1 and Texas can go in there and handle business. I don't know. I'm curious about it.
Well, so the good thing for Matt Patricia is that he has Caleb Downs. So he's got arguably the best football player in America. So that he's got that working for him. I don't know. It's interesting because you lose the guy who is probably considered the best defensive coordinator in America in Jim Knowles. And he took a big pay raise, but he moved across the conference, which kind of stings. So you're going to have to face him every year, and he's going to know your program and everything. But I kind of obviously it's not exactly the same, but I kind of look at him as a little bit Chip Kelly, because Chip Kelly was rocket high, and then he kind of fell off, and then started finding his footing, and then he ended up at Ohio State. But it could go either way with him, because obviously if you learned under Bill Belichick for that long, you're going to pick up some things, and you're going to know how to, game plan a defense and all those kinds of things. But I think either way, no matter if Ohio State ends up having a great defense next year by the end of the season or not, it's going to be a defense in transition when Texas heads to Columbus in week 1. And I think that's the biggest thing. If Jim Knowles is still there, I'm a lot less confident if I'm a Texas fan about going into Columbus and winning that game with 2 new coordinators and Ohio State trying to figure everything out, transition at quarterback, a lot of guys going to the NFL. I think that's a very good thing for you regardless. If Patricia can get half of what Jim Knowles got out of that defense in the second half of this season and really in the playoff, they're going to be in good shape. It's just a matter of whether or not he can get the guys to buy into his system, how different the system will be, how the players will fit into that system, how much he's going to change. I mean, obviously he's going to have his own system, because that's just what happens when you change coordinators. But I don't know. I feel really good about it if I'm Texas, regardless.
I feel good about it if I'm Texas, and that's the problem. Matt Patricia. I get it's Josh McCown was that same problem when he went and left twice, and both times it was a complete and utter dumpster fire at the Broncos, and it was at the Raiders. Just killed franchises because he came in and said things have to be run this way. This is how Big Daddy Bill runs things, so we're going to run things this way. And if Ryan Day can get Matt Patricia to just coach football and leave everything else out, you don't get a coach. We coach this way at Ohio State. It works. We just won a national championship. We know what we're doing. This is the way we want it done. And if you want to come and play on our team, that's great. We think you have a great football mind. We also think you're a complete idiot when it comes to how you run things, because there's one guy who can run things like Bill Belichick, and it's Bill Belichick. So, and by the way, he pissed off his quarterback so much, he left and won a Super Bowl somewhere else. So even then, maybe we don't want to do that in the transfer portal of what you of how you're doing it. It'll be an interesting, but I could see that there's going to be early on, it could be issues of different opinion of how they're supposed to handle it and how much power Matt Patricia has. I mean, again, it's college. Normally these big places have so many analysts and so many coaches that you're not going to be able to screw it up too bad. But it's just a really, really interesting hire, because it feels like a name hire. And you just won you don't need a name hire. You just won the title. You don't need it. Go get a good coach. You don't need to bring in a guy that maybe it's recruiting wise to say we brought in an NFL coach. It just doesn't make sense of why you would bring in somebody that has zero track record outside of the Patriots. And we know that can be a smokescreen.
Yeah. So that's the other thing I wanted to bring up about this hire too, is you have absolutely no idea what he's going to be able to do in recruiting. He can play his NFL card, but he's not going to be able to be the same kind of recruiter as a guy like Jim Knowles, who has skins on the wall in the college game. You don't know if parents are going to buy into what he's selling, if the players are going to buy into what he's selling, because literally the only card he has to play right now is, I used to coach with Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I've been in the NFL for a long time. I know you say Tom Brady. You don't say Bill Belichick. You say Tom Brady.
Yeah, there you go.
That is the name you say. We got to get out of here real quick. I want to throw out, if you want to watch some TV tonight. Do you have anything you're watching tonight?
No, I don't think so. I'm moving on Monday, so I'm packing up my house.
You're packing up the house. We'll throw out Spurs at Celtics is about to happen on ESPN, and then late game will be interesting. Warriors at Mavericks is at 8:30. Side note: Daniel Gafford, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, and Dwight Powell are all out for the Mavericks. PJ Washington is a game time decision. If he does not play, Kyler Kelly is your one player over 6'7" on the Mavericks right now. Now, I think there's no better team to do that against than the Golden State Warriors, who don't really have any tall guys either. Kevin Looney is probably your tallest player, like 6'9", that plays, but they don't really have a lot of tall guys either. But interesting is all the centers are currently out for the Mavericks. So that could be an interesting game to watch if you want to watch some basketball tonight. Not a ton on in the sports world. Tomorrow we get a really good women's basketball game at Texas. So we'll be watching that tomorrow. We'll be talking about it as well. We get back tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Remember, the day starts off with Bucky and BK at their new time at 7 a.m., 7 to 9, right here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Until then, for myself, thanks to Matt Galatzan, always killing it over there as well. Be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean. We'll see you right back here tomorrow for more on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered.